I'm Robert Saltzman. This is the 10,000 Things open Zoom meeting for April 14th, 2018. This introduction is necessary because due to operator error, my error, the beginning of the meeting was not recorded, and some things that were said there that are referred to later in the meeting. So in order for that to be understood, I will try to recapitulate briefly what was said before the recording got started. I was saying that I had read a conversation on Facebook in which someone had posted a quotation from Long Chenpa, which said, even the perceptions of the Buddhas are nothing other than the way awareness manifests. Even the perceptions of Buddhas are nothing other than the way awareness manifests. Now, the guy who posted this commented and said, I can see and practice being awareness and consciousness as fundamentally who we are. And sure, it works, but I wouldn't say I live there permanently yet. Now, this idea of practicing being awareness is a procedure followed by many with an interest in so-called non-duality. And it may sound good, but to my mind, which I call awakened mind, it really appears shallow and a bit foolish. Awareness has no agenda. Awareness is simply here. It's a facet of this aliveness that no one has to try to create or produce, and which no one can create or produce. So practicing being awareness is just another fantasy of self-improvement, a fantasy of becoming what one is not now, but wishes to be. Now, there's nothing wrong with self-improvement if that's what you want. If you want to lose weight or learn a second language or how to do hatha yoga, that's fine. But that's not what this meeting is about. In each moment, what is and cannot be otherwise. So there's no becoming at all. There's no self-improvement possible. There is, as I have said often, nothing to realize or attain. In each apparent instant, all of this, the 10,000 things, is just here. No one knows how it gets here or what any of it means, if it means anything. Calling it God or life or consciousness explains nothing. Those are names, not explanations. Now, if no one knows how any of this gets here or what any of it means, if anything, and as there is nothing to attain or realize, the teacher-student model, which might be useful in the arts and sciences, has little or no use in the matter of awareness. In fact, splitting this aliveness into a teacher who knows and a student who is ignorant and needs to find out only deepens the hypnotic trance of ignorance. Let each of us be a light unto ourselves, I say, and this meeting not be about students and teachers, but about what my old friend John Troy calls fellowship. At that point, John entered the conversation and offered the image of human awareness as a kind of organic process in which the living of an ordinary life might, in some people, but not all, produce a flower that then might be shared with others, which is what he means by fellowship. But the flower, John said, has no permanence. Only plastic flowers don't wilt and fade. The recording picks up now in the midst of John speaking.
And its beauty doesn't necessarily have to be joyful or whatever. The pains, I mean, I'm watching my own body crumble like a cookie. I got a long list of shit going on. And it's not all comfortable, but it's still all within me. And when I'm here and looking at Robert here, Robert is within me. And if there's a seamless quality about that right now. And I call that love. That's where, especially where two meet in that seamless way. There's really no name that can do it justice because it's not in the realm of a vocabulary. But it's just sense it. It feels like love to me. And that's fellowship. It's seeing, or what I would call equality of vision. The wise people that I have met have had visions of equality that it was impossible to get beneath their vision of equality to look up to them. And Robert is one of them.
Wowee, I love you too. I really do. Ah, it's so beautiful to be seen. It's so beautiful to be seen. That's the experience I'm having since the book was published, and that gap and all these millstones. Milestones or millstones? I forget which it is. all these things. John, you really touched my heart. My God. Fuck. It's what it is, you know. Nobody's going to win. That's not what it's about. It's about, in your metaphor, it's about inhaling this aroma when the flower is open. Not judging it. Actually, and as you say, there's often a lot of pain involved in that, physical suffering. And sometimes there's terrible sadness that's psychological, not physical, and all the rest. And it seems to me, and has really all my life since childhood, that all of this religious stuff and this philosophical airy-fairy and all of it is only a way of insulating oneself from what we really all know. We all really know. We all really know this. It's not like Robert Saltzman knows it, and now I have to tell all of you, hey, you're going to die and everything. I don't think so. You already knew that before you came here. What I'm saying is, I have a kind of a message, I guess, at this point, which is just to drop this entire hierarchy of spirituality. Put it out of your mind. It's useless. It's worse than useless. It gets in the way. It's worse than useless. It's like you've got this backpack, but it's full of rocks. So when you get to where you need it, you open it up and you've just been carrying around this useless bag of rocks. You can't do anything with it. The thing that John and I are having this fellowship about at this moment is there comes a time when that, whether you chose it or not, will become obvious. When you're my age, or John's older than me, it's pretty hard to lie to yourself. At that point, if you can do it, you're actually clinically impaired. See, when you're young and everything seems groovy, oh, you get the psychological, psychosexual Sturm and Drang is not that much fun, a lot of it. But you feel good a lot of the time, if you do. If you have that fortunate life, I did. And then you can be driven by your hungers and your aversions, all of that. And that will be this delusion that spirituality supports. that's how spirituality is sold. It's the sexual side of it that's being sold. The greatest example of that was Rajneesh. Greatest example in my lifetime. He had the most unbelievable product. And I just saw the 6-part thing on Netflix. If you haven't seen this, it's called The Wild Wild West. And it's a great documentary on the Rajneesh phenomenon. Non-judgmental. I mean, it's very good reportage. So I recommend that. So what he did was he put together his reading of Zen and Vedanta and all of this. Same stuff I've got in my brain. He put it together with this idea that you can fuck anyone you want if you hang out in my ashram. And we'll have these orgies and it'll be beautiful for everyone. And at that time, when he put that message out there, for a while, I think he was the most popular human on earth. I think there was actually a poll taken, week by week, and he won a few of those weeks. So that was a great product. So he had this great product. Well, what we want to do is not allow ourselves to remain in that adolescent psychosexuality for our entire lives while we call that spirituality. And what I mean by that, I'm going to put it in simple language because that was kind of psychological even for me. You have to participate in this body-mind wholeheartedly. If you don't, you will remain deluded. No matter how brilliant you think your ideas are, or how much you understand Nisargadatta or whomever, you'll remain deluded unless you fully participate in what John called this flower. This flowering is yours. Nisargadatta had his, and now 6 feet under. I'm hearing, please mute your mic. As I was saying, John had this beautiful metaphor, which really speaks to me, that there's a flowering in a human life. And that flowering is a really beautiful thing. It's actually unspeakably beautiful. It's the best thing that can ever happen to anyone. The thing is, you don't get to keep it. That's all it is. You get to experience it, though, if you can. If you have the heart to experience that. And all I'm saying, my entire message is don't let these gurus or whatever talk you out of that. They don't have any method. Fuck that. Get into your own life. Feel what you feel. Okay, John's got his hand up. I'll give it to you, John.
That we own our totality of our perception. We own it. And these religions and gurus and schools of thought will take that flower and the sentience, the inherent sentience, and try to brand it for you. Whether it's Adyashanti, Jesus, or Mohammed, or Buddha, or whatever, they want to remove it from you as something external, outside of yourself, and not recognize what's inherent and true and beautiful without needing any of these brands superimposed upon the brandless. And all religions do it. They complete with the slogans and the logo. I mean, Christianity, you got the logo of the Christ, you got the Jesus saves pitch word, you got the what they call the visual hammer, no pun intended. And then they sell the idea, especially in youth, up, and then they get a royalty on it. They get a royalty on your own goodness and kindness and empathy and sweetness. And the ones who are, I like Robert's critique of these people who employ all the stagecraft. You have the dais and the flowers and the clothing and the name and all of that, and that's a brand. That's just branding. Is branding something that you already own? Is branding that, and then asking in some way or another for royalty, and to help spread the word on the brand. I say don't buy into it. Own it totally, and don't let any of these camps brand your own goodness and sentience. That's all.
Oh, beautiful. That's also lovely. Of course, we agree totally. Don't let anyone put you in a frame, my dears. You're boundless if you only know it. You really are. You may not have any staying power, but each moment is boundless. If you just let it be what it is and don't let anyone put a frame around it, it's seamless, as John says. It's just here, and it's you, and we don't know what that is, and we never will. That's the beauty. You get to live this without knowing. See, that's what I have to share. And I want to mention before I throw the conversation to the floor that Joan Tollefson was planning to be here today. I'd invited her because I thought it might be really great to have the three of us. She's such a wise person also. But she's just getting over some cancer surgery and chemo and radiation and all that and still feeling a bit too tired. But, you know, this is her book. It's called Nothing to Grasp. This is a really good read. Very good. Highly recommend it. So, who would like to be the first person to comment or pose a question? You can turn your mic on and speak.
I very much appreciate your efforts in sharing what you share. I really appreciate, and this is just a comment, I have no question, I really appreciate, as you did earlier in the intro, when you speak about the impermanent nature of life. And it seems like you always do it with a chuckle and a laugh and a sense of humor, because it's really something we have no choice in the matter. It's an absolute fact. And when one starts to grasp that, there's seemingly an inherent humor there. And I appreciate that when you express it, because it's such an underlying foundational teaching in Buddhism, the nature of impermanence. And oftentimes the reading about impermanence in the Buddhist literatures and such, very dire, very serious. And you add some lightness to it, and it brings it alive for me. And it's very much appreciated.
Thank you, Howard. What a lovely observation. Well, that's pretty much the essence of it. See, the whole thing is humorous if you understand. If you really understand, there's nothing you really can do but laugh. And there's a lot of religious imagery of characters like that. There's Hotai, that's the big fat Buddha who's and I mean the idea is idiotic. See, because the person, you see Robert, and you say this thing, you expressed appreciation to him, and I get that. I understand that. And Robert got it. You know, it's good. But what I really am is you. we only have, this split only occurs to us because of this incarnation that has sexual needs and need to get food and shelter and clothing. We have to be animals. We have to rip and tear from this world. People aren't just giving everything away. It's not like that. I tried that in the 60s and it didn't work. Okay. Many of my friends were communards, and I spent plenty of time in communes. And all kinds of, what do they call it these days? Another word for it. Community. They call it now being in community, I've heard. So, the humor in it is that I'm not doing anything, and I can no more choose not to speak these words at this moment than I could have chosen to speak them. They're just being spoken. Okay? And now it sounds serious when you put it that way, which is the problem with the Buddhist literature. It's hard to discuss these matters in a lighthearted way, really, because it's very dire in a certain sense. Impermanence is extremely dire. It's about as hard as it gets. I mean, to really take it in. Everyone can just talk about fucking impermanence. Oh yes, everything's transitory, and I know all the koans, so now I'm down with that. But it's not like that. See, it's very sad. If that dimension is missing, you aren't alive. You just aren't, and that's why I laugh, because when something's really sad, what else can you do? You better laugh. You better have a sense of humor for this shit. Okay. Anything more, Howard?
No, that's it for now. Thank you.
Okay, I want to invite Kirsten to step to the podium because I've been wanting to get her. She's a wonderful writer and has great ideas.
Thank
I've been wanting to get her to share some. So you got it, Kirsten. Take it away.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's lovely to see you, and I think most people know that you were very important to me a couple of years ago. Your writing really stopped me in my tracks because I'd been really prone to a lot of optimistic, magical thinking. But when I read your stuff, there's such a sense of, like you say, we all know this and we can't avoid it, but we try to avoid it. And it was very comforting for me. And even now, I find that whatever kind of bind I find myself in, if I just sit with a few paragraphs of what you've written, I can seem to come back into the present moment and just deal with what's in front of me. There's a little bit in your book that just talks about enjoying what you can enjoy and enduring the other stuff. And I think that that is the reality that we're dealing with. And there's something, I think there's something very, it's comforting because it's sanity, it's reality. Things can't be any other way than the way they are. So we can bitch about it if we like, but the fact is, it is what it is, and it's not something else. And this moment is what we have. I've also found a lot of comfort in the discussions that you've had on free will. That's given me a lot of peace. The fact that we didn't choose our parents, we didn't choose the historical time that we're born in, we didn't choose our genetic inheritance, we certainly didn't choose our early childhood environment. And this combination is basically running itself out. I was talking to you this week because I was struggling a little bit with some things I'd read about the early childhood environment and how our sense of self is formed psychologically. and how the experiences we have when we're younger cause us to form beliefs. And we were talking, and I was saying I wasn't sure that I had a question, but I had related very much to some difficult childhood experiences and the beliefs that were formed then. And I kind of felt that if I hold those experiences, then that's how I'm going to see the world. And some of that was quite painful, because what I like to do, what I've always done, is think, okay, here's something about myself I want to change. And then I try to work out mentally how I can change that. But of course, I don't really have the control. So I don't know if you want to say something about that.
You want me to comment?
Yeah.
Before I do, thank you so much for your words. I think really the way that you put it really grasps something essential. This is it. I mean, whatever we may think about it or feel about it, those are data points, doubtless. We notice them, but they don't add up to anything. You can't make anything out of that. This is here, but this is actually here. See? So what you're calling sanity is dealing with what's really here, not with what some expert or religious figure tells me about it, which is nonsense. Okay, so thank you, Kirsten. I think you really got that part about here and now, and that's essential. Yeah. So this other thing you're asking about goes very deep. See, and actually, do you know anything about Melanie Klein, who's a country woman of yours? She was a psychologist. Oh, that's it.
A little bit from Tom, actually, about Melanie Klein. And is she talking about the good and the bad and splitting?
Splitting, yes. So I'll give you the 1 minute course in Melanie Klein. According to Melanie, when the child's first impulse is to suck at the nipple, and the child, it's an instinct. See, this is the first contact with reality. It's going to take place with mouth. Okay. Well, when the child does that, there's an immediate gratification, because this is an inborn survival instinct. That it's anything that tends towards survival will be highly gratifying. This is just automatic. It was not that God created it that way. This is how it evolved. The things that were essential had to have a big reward. That's why sex is such a pleasure. Come on, we know this. So, but the first contact is the nipple in the mouth. Now the child drinks some milk. Let me go back. If the nipple's a good fit, the child sucks, there's really milk there, the milk tastes good, child drinks the milk. The child feels good after that meal and drops off to sleep. That's one version. Another version is, it's what Melanie called a bad feed. The nipple doesn't quite fit in the mouth, the child's whatever doesn't really suck enough, or there's not enough milk, or the milk tastes sour, or the child drinks the milk and feels sick afterwards, whatever. That is the initial split in the child's entire experience of the outside world. It has no other contact with the outside world. And at that point, in order for the child to cohere as a unitary, as a being, in order to become a person, so to speak, or the child has to cohere inwardly while splitting the breast into a good breast and a bad breast. That split is now out in the world, and I'm intact. This causes neurotic symptoms later in life, because we're still driven by these initial needs to suck, for example, and have it split. I can't go into it here. It's very complicated. You could check out Melanie. So, okay, so to your question was, repeat your question, Kirsten, please. Keep your mic on, by the way.
Okay, so I think my question was, if your early childhood experience is causing you to see the world in a certain way, is there anything you can do about that apart from just to be aware?
Good, perfect question.
Yeah.
What do you propose? What do you propose we do?
I don't think that one of the things that I've really got from your work is there is no final answer. So there is no resolution. There's no complete resolution in the mind. So I have the awareness from the things that I was reading this week. I don't think I have any control over how that will play out, because the I that I am now is not going to be the I that's in future situations that might trigger those responses.
Yes, but I'm not saying that that there's no resolution. I've never said that. What I've said is that awakening never ends,
Right.
but certain questions can be entirely put to bed forever. That doesn't mean that there are not other aspects of this experience called myself to be revealed. In other words, what I'm saying is there are no perfect masters. That's just that's a human idea that does not apply to what we really are, which is a growing edge. Now, if something's perfect, there's no growing edge. It's perfect as it is, and it's dead. Living things aren't perfect. They're in a way they are obvious. They're here, but they're not perfect. If we look at our own bodies, we're born with bodily defects. It's not just all smooth sailing where you start at the top of the hill and just have a nice sled down. I mean, that's not how it goes. So try to answer your, go ahead, speak, please.
So were you going to say that in terms of, like, there are some things that you can put to bed? Are you talking about, say, therapy, if you have specific issues you want to look at?
No, I'm saying that I feel no conflict personally about this issue of I'm driven by forces beyond first of all, beyond my comprehension. And even if I could comprehend them, beyond my power to go back and rejigger so that I can be a more confident Robert, or whatever the desire is. That would have been one of mine years ago. I was kind of inward, you know. Now I'm speaking because, as John was pointing out, that's the flowering of Robert, is to be doing exactly this, and I know that, and that's why there's no split. It may not be perfect. I may be doing this from a deep woundedness, Kirsten, but soldier on, and that's life. And if you can do that, what John, this beat up old dude, and myself also beat up old dude, what we are saying is, if you can and take him seriously, this is a beautiful man. I know him personally. He's amazing. The things he does in life are amazing. I actually could praise him a lot, but listen to what he's saying. He doesn't want it. Listen to what I'm saying. He will tell you, and I will tell you, that all you can do is immerse yourself in it. You will never figure this out. You will never get a handle on it. It's wild. It's life.
So this is what you've got. And so
if I'm impaired, and at this point, I am in a lot of ways. You know, I'm kind of a aging specimen, and limitations, physical and perhaps mental at this point, begin to, I don't know that, and my friends won't tell me. So at a certain point, they'll say, oh yes, it was the year 2021 when he finally lost it. But the works before that were great. We like to read those. after 2021 for him. See, this is what we're really dealing with. So if you can accept that, then what you have now, and you're not dealing with any of this, what you're dealing with is other demons. We'll always, see, we'll always be wrestling with something.
Yeah.
And it's in the acceptance of that, there's peace.
Yeah.
It's just part of it. It's the ticket. It's the dues you paid to be at the theater, you know. That's all it is. We're born, we're going to die. This is not this pleasure cruise.
Yeah.
And
that's a really beautiful way of putting it.
yes, and I think that the spiritual people become hypnotized and deluded because what they're really seeking is pleasure. They're hedonists, which is a totally defective way of, in my view, of dealing with these matters. You could do it, get some cocaine and a couple of babes in a hotel room like Donald Trump or something, I guess, if that really would. It didn't seem to really work for him, though. So that's what I have to say about that, Kirsten. You got to swallow what's on the plate while it's on the plate. And if you can do that, then I think that puts it to bed. Then you're just at peace. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying you can adopt that attitude exactly, but you can know that there is such an attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so happy that you're here. Anything more to say?
No, that's brilliant. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, well, I want to commend your writing to others who are viewing this. How do you find that? What's the Google search?
It's on WordPress. It's called Rose in Motion, and it's a blog on WordPress.
Okay, it's called Rose in Motion.
Thank you.
Flower in motion, yeah. And you certainly are. Yes.
Can you hear me?
I hear you fine.
I like what the confession you shared with us about a dream that was part and parcel of awakening, where the storyline and the narrator were looking on the cliff at a structure and the dissipation of that structure as a mental construct. That really spoke to me. That storyline, that narrator storyline that we put so much emphasis on can no more change the outcome of life than a narrator at a football game could change the outcome of the football game. And it dissipates. It just dissipates.
That's funny.
And as my roster friend said, no grief, just relief. No grief, just relief. And when I read that really struck home to me.
Oh, yeah, thank you, John. That was a really great dream. It was a premonitory dream, as they call it, meaning that I had the dream, and then later the experience occurred in waking time. Pretty interesting. That was before I had really studied psychology very much. I didn't even know the term premonitory dream at that time. And later, I found that this has occurred many times to many people. Like one beautiful example that has nothing to do with spirituality is the guy who figured out that the benzene ring in organic chemistry, which had been a problem that had eluded scientists for years, dreamt of a snake biting its own tail, and when he awakened, wrote the structure of this thing down verbatim immediately, right after the dream. It's pretty interesting. To me, it does not suggest that the dream comes from some other place, which is splitting, Kirsten. That's what splitting. See, okay, I'll stick a pin in this one for a moment, John, to go back to what Kirsten and I were talking about. I'm not a Melanie Klein disciple by any means, but there's something to what she says that rings true in my mind. I can't remember back to sucking at the breast, but I can remember being pretty young and feeling sometimes how beautiful everything was, and other times how annoyed I felt without anything outwardly necessarily having changed. In other words, those aspects were already now engraved. The good breast and the bad breast are engraved in we judge everything, Yes, okay, so that one. So the splitting, see this, okay, to take this a bit further. All of these, you're not, the ego is nothing. It's like dog shit. You have to scrape it off, It's ridiculous. You can't throw it away. Where are you going to put it? Non-duality. How do you non-dual? Where do you see? You said that earlier, John, but I don't think I'd started the recording. I neglected to start it. But you said non-duality is bullshit or whatever you said at the top. I hope I got it on. It's bullshit because it's
nothing. Non-duality is absolutely nothing.
Say it again. I talked over you. I'm sorry.
Non-duality is absolutely nothing.
Yes, absolutely nothing. It's a brand. I watched it being branded. So did John in the 90s. And it took off big. Before then, no one talked about non-duality. Then all these publishing companies and everything pumped it up. Now they get probably non-duality cookbooks and all this. Only flour, no other ingredients. It's a non-dual cake. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. So we have to be, that's it, throw out that non-duality bullshit. Get it out of your life. It's actually a evil meme. It really is. It's going around now, and it makes idiots out of people. It really does. And the thing that's amazing is they will take some ancient source who was just like I am now sitting before you, no different, a person of wisdom, and not some perfected human, just a wise person who got the idea. So he talks, he gets quoted. Now all these non-duality people, and he happens to be, so he has a name he's Long Chengpa, someone like that, someone whose name you would remember, if you're in the Tibetan Buddhism, you've read all this stuff, and okay, bow to it. So that cat, he's quoted, and the quotation makes perfect sense. And the quotation is all about not splitting. Now some idiot, the idiot who quoted it, says, well, I'm part of the way there, but not yet. I hope to be, but not yet. And he had completely misunderstood what Long Chengpa was saying, but was bowing to it. he was bound to the idolatry of his own hypnotized, split, unexamined, split, entirely unexamined, split mind, which is always in a top dog, underdog posture. There'll be two voices. One will be saying, I'm fine the way I am, get out of my face. And the other one will be saying, I don't feel so good. And then the top dog will say, yeah, well, you don't really deserve to feel good the way you're acting. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm doing the best I can. No, you're not. Okay. And we do this to ourselves all the time, see? And spirituality is not the way out of that. The way out of it is very simple, Kirsten and everyone else. It's radical self-acceptance, as you are right now in this moment. There is no other being. There's nothing else. There isn't. I don't ask you to believe me. Don't say, Robert says there's nothing else. That's not the idea. The idea is if you look at it in an open-minded way, I think you'll have to come to that conclusion, that anything else is some idea. And the only thing that's real right now is the broken arm or whatever the fuck it is. And that's what we have to deal with. Not, will I live forever, or is Brahman and Robert one thing or two things? We don't think that way on Earth here if we're sane. That's idiot trip. That's my teaching. My teaching is, this is an idiot trip for idiots. And you can take that to the bank. Okay, I'm having too much fun again. Bad, Robert. You should not be acting this way. Oh no, you see, that's when we avoid that, whatever happens, even if I'm in considerable pain, lying on the ground and all the rest of it, I'm still here, truly am. And you see what John is attesting to, if I hear you correctly, brother. Even when it hurts, the bliss of existence at all is still obvious. Is that true, John?
Yes. And plastic flowers aren't appealing to me. I like flowers that wither, because the beauty is in the withering.
Yeah, you get it.
And plastic flowers just don't cut it. And a lot of this seeking and everything are ideas of afterlives and immortality. And things is making a plastic flower out of us.
So I'd like to invite, we have many people here. I'd like to invite anyone who feels like speaking to please join in. You don't have to say anything profound. It's about fellowship. Just speaking and telling us all that you're here and interested in this.
Good morning, Robert and John Troy.
Hello there, David.
My condolences about your friend, Mr. Hall, the guy who wrote the preface on the book. I really mean that deeply. And I know that relationship is very, very, very important. So my condolences.
Oh, you mean about Robert Hall?
Yeah.
Yeah, Robert's just a great old guy.
I reread the foreword, and Robert and I have talked about Robert Hall, and Robert's done some interviews, and I think it's important to really reveal sort of that Robert was instrumental in helping you sort of come out of the closet and really just say what you're saying today and meeting with people, because Robert helped you come out, speak to some of his classes, and encouraged you to write the book. And you guys probably sat by the porch out there in Mexico and talked many, 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 many hours about many, 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 many things that led to this moment, and you being able to freely share something that is quite unique, utterly complex because of its simplicity of a flower, basically, and pointing. So I just wanted to point in Robert's direction. Even though he can't be here, he's sort of here through you, because he encouraged you to speak out a little bit more and write a book.
Well, he didn't encourage me to write the book, but our conversations over the years were extraordinary, because I'd been here in this town for 7 years before Robert showed up. He showed up in the year 2000. Catania and I moved down here in '93. And I didn't know anyone else who had my interests at all. So a lot of surfers here then, and people who really would like to be in San Diego, but you can get cheap help down here. So, or whatever their tropical fantasy is. So I was pretty much down here alone in that regard. I had Catania, but she and I don't want to talk this way. Why would we? We have better things to do. And so when Robert showed up, it was like instant friendship, and a very interesting friendship, because you said he helped me come out, but actually he's the gay one and I'm the straight one. So maybe he already knew what it took to come out, you know. We sat there for many hours and discussed these things, and Robert asked me if he could use quote from me in his talks that he gave on Sundays, and I always told him yes, and without attribution. So we had this beautiful kind of thing where we would discuss these ideas. I think I have some ability to put things in interesting ways, and these were very subtle points about they're hard points. They don't really translate into words very much. So we would have these great conversations. Sometimes we would argue. There was a time of a couple of years when Robert was somewhat reluctant about coming to the meetings, our weekly meetings. He was annoyed with me. And then later it turned out that he had shed a skin during that time as a result of our talks. It was really beautiful. It was wonderful to see that. And as far as what he gave me, he was the first really serious Buddhist with all the scholarly background and the practice back, all of it, who I could be alone with and just talk heart to heart, so that these ideas that I'm now expressing could be tested and some of them cleared up. And what Robert gave me most of all was the ability to accept other people in a way that I had been blinded to earlier. Although still having an open heart. It wasn't that I was stingy or anything, but I was just missing something, and Robert has it. And being around him opened my heart to other people in a beautiful way. So that friendship has been important to us both, very, very highly important. And Robert is at the end, pretty much. So we're just saying our goodbyes, David. And
but didn't you also, I noticed that he was a psychologist too. So you guys had another common ground to bond between his Buddhism and your ideas at that particular point. So that was is that correct?
well, he was a psychiatrist, not a psychologist. So he was a medical doctor. He was an army psychiatrist for many years, and had a family with a woman before really coming out, living the second half of his life from his true sexual nature. A very interesting cat, beautiful guy.
I think I was more getting, well, that's interesting too, but I was getting at the fact if he was a psychiatrist, you're a psychologist, that was a real common ground where you each had a deep understanding, obviously, of either you know, Freud or Jungian, and you had a common ground to come off.
Well, I tend to see things psychologically. And this is what Kirsten and I were discussing earlier about Melanie Klein. I tend to think that those are the best explanations that I've heard for why we are so driven. See, the thing that we all share as humans is this drivenness, this, as I say, when you get older, there's a natural relaxation. It's not so much that you have to discard this as a spiritual practice or some cleanup. No, it's just a natural. Life is its own renunciation. Let's put it that way. You don't need to be renunciate. Everything will be renunciated for you. So then that's good to know, see? And Robert and I totally got that. We got that from the day we met. I mean, we were already both way far along when we met, which made it a really exciting experience to get to know him, because we were already very clear of bullshit when we met. It's very, very nice. So anyway, he's, I guess what I'm saying is I really miss him now, because the talks we're having now are different. He's more like a child. And it's nice. It's not bad. And that's impermanence. See, that's it right there. And if we can accept that, I do, then we can have these relationships without having to put limits on them. A lot of these relationship difficulties that people have, if I can speak as a psychotherapist for a moment, they come from being afraid to live. So, yes, I have this girlfriend and I really dig her, but it's provisional. See, I want everything to be provisional, because once I really stick my foot in it, then I'm really in it. No, I can't, you see it so well. Adolescence forever, baby. Okay, so Robert and I did not have that when we met. We were both very experienced men, and we had been through a lot, and it was great. So I'm letting him go now, and I've already told him that, and I will always value the beauty that he brought into my life. And I'm going to be sharing other things about him over time, I'm sure. I'll write something.
And he did write a great foreword to your book.
Well, you see, Robert, the thing that Robert saw me instantly, just like I did him, which is great. So he got me to come out because he told me that I was awake. I knew that. It's not that I needed Robert to tell me that I was awake, but I didn't ask him, am I awake? He said, man, you're fucking awake. This is beautiful. You're a teacher of non-duality, he said, and you should be teaching that. And I thought it over. Well, I'm being very honest now. I'm sorry if this goes on very long, but no one else wanted to speak anyway. So now they have to wait. He said, you should be doing this. You're a teacher of non-duality. And I said, oh, Robert, don't put me on an ego trip, man. I don't want to hear that. First thing I said, honest. First thought, best thought, it's just that. Very honest. I didn't want to be a teacher of non-duality and have an inflated ego, because now I'm the teacher of non-duality, and non-duality is the tits. See, I've seen too much of that in my life, far too much. That alpha male gets the harem and la-di-da, la-di-da. So I told Robert, I'm not going to do that. So he's very clever. He sent over someone from his Sangha. He called me on the phone. He said, I've sent, as if fait accompli, he said, I've sent her over to talk to you. She's not getting it from the Dharma talks, and she's very upset. I want you to speak with her. Well, he's a friend, so I couldn't turn him down, see? And that went pretty well. So soon I had a lot of people come into my thing there where I did psychotherapy, but they weren't coming for psychotherapy. And I did that for a couple of years and did not enjoy it at all. It was a constant strain upon my innate narcissism. Not that I couldn't handle it, I handled it beautifully, I would say. Not a hiccup in the real world, but inwardly, I was not comfortable in that role. It's too much work, way too much. What we're doing here is good. That's what I'm expressing my gratitude to you all for attending this meeting, for thinking that the things that I say and write are worthwhile. To me, that's an opening. It's a beautiful thing. It's not that I'm this, dispenser of reality or something. No. The thing that Robert did for me, David, was he gave me the confidence to wear the role, let's put it that way, enough to communicate what really wants to be communicated. Because there's something I'm saying that really wants to be communicated. That's so obvious. I feel it, and I know others feel it when they hear it. So clear. And to me, part of that is a sacrifice on a personal level. It's hard to explain this, and I wish I could, but I'm mentioning it because maybe someone will understand it and say something to me about it at some point. That actually it may seem cool to be sitting here doing this, but on a personal level, it has a price. And I think that is what keeps a lot of people from being really honest, because then you have to be very vulnerable. Everyone's going to see you, really fucking see you, because you haven't put up any screen. And I like it, don't get me wrong, but you have to be a bit of a masochist or something to really like it. Probably am. Okay, I've occupied far too much time in my autobiography. So I want to say something else. Richard Elkin, I see you and your amigo there. Welcome. Could you check in, Richard? I'd love to hear from you.
Hi, how are you? My friend Tom is here with me. He had something he wanted to say.
Okay. Before he speaks, Richard, I'm just so glad to see you. I loved having you at that last meeting that you made, and I know you've been busy selling jewelry.
Attempting to sell jewelry, yes.
Yeah.
I appreciated our chat the other day. I just wanted to. One thing that sort of came up recently that's been kind of interesting for me is you talk about the idea of there's no doer, and I know it's a little different than the old Zen koan about the student getting kicked in the shin. That's sort of the no self koan, but I was a potter for many, many years, and I was a production potter. So I didn't make one of a kind art pieces. I made 100 vases at a time, or 100 coffee cups at a time, or whatever it might have been. And I would go into my studio I lived up in the mountains in New Hampshire. In the summer, it was especially nice. There was, I had a big 4-foot wide door with a piece of screen over it that was on the edge of a pine forest. And the heat-driven scent of the pine would waft in, and I would stand up at my potter's wheel and gaze out the window as I threw, 100 mugs or whatever it was that day. Frequently, at the end of the day, I would stand back and see this pile of ware boards full of all these pots just stacked, and there would be some there that I didn't know who made them. And those, honestly, those to my eye were different and more beautiful. And there's a story of Shoji Hamada, who was a Japanese production potter. And whenever he threw tea bowls, which were, of course, the most austere form one would make as a Japanese potter, he would always invite someone to his studio to talk with him, to distract him while he was making the tea bowls, so that he wouldn't pay too much attention to what he was doing and fuck him up. So this idea of no-doer to me is that's how I relate to it, and it happens with full engagement. We talked a little bit about it in a post the other day, and that idea that of presence without intellectualization, without filtering and sorting, but just being present for it is what actually comes up is this really beautiful, authentic, unfiltered stuff, which sometimes smells like shit and sometimes smells like roses, but it's really quite that simple. So my relating to that no-doer is through that experience that I just recalled. But I just hijacked my friend Tom here.
All right, well, before Tom speaks, let me just comment on what you said. I thought that was really a beautiful conversation that we had, both the public one and then the private messages. And, I thought the part that stuck in my mind was you're saying, yeah, I said ego isn't like some dog shit that you just scrape off your shoe. It's not like that. And you said, but sometimes my ego smells like shit. And I said, well, but you can't throw it, even if it is shit, you can't throw it away. Where would you put it? That is non-duality. Nothing can be thrown away. Nothing. There's no place to put it. This is it. See, and if you want to clean this up, there's no trash heap to put out the trash and improve yourself. Forget about it. This is it. See, that's non-duality. And it's very simple. There's no reason to really brand it. As John was saying, wise people have understood this for eons. It's in the literature. Robert Saltzman isn't this genius who came up with these ideas for the first time in human history or something. And so you have to try to understand that. This is the human mind. It's been expressing itself like this for a very, very long time. Very long time. And we haven't grown wiser philosophically. We're the same as we always have been. And there's no progress in it. See, it's just the human experience. Okay, enough of that. Thomas, can you now check in?
Hi, I'm Tom. And
Tom, sorry.
I really grateful for having the chance to share some time with you, Robert, and with the entire community, and like the idea of fellowship. I talked with Rick about the two of us doing this together this morning out of a sense of fellowship. And right now, I'm feeling a fair amount of pain and discomfort. And where that seems to be arising for me is that this fellowship, what I'm hearing is that there's a limit to it, that there are perhaps some who have experienced some facets of impermanence. And then there's another crowd of religious or spiritual or people who have co-opted non-duality, who are in some ways fools and con men, and they're out there somewhere, as if they had a choice in the matter, as if they are not somehow expressing something that is constantly emerging. And it feels to me as though a splitting is taking place right here within our group, that this group, that there's some other group out there that is somehow less and hasn't, I don't know, the word earned comes up to me, earned by their appreciation of impermanence. They haven't earned a place at the table, and that feels really uncomfortable to me. I'm actually at tears about that because all I want to do is bring everyone in, and I guess even I guess I'll leave it there, that I'm sitting here with a great deal of discomfort. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. First of all, I am sorry if anything that I have said brings you discomfort. I would never choose to do that. I was trying to tune in to where the discomfort was exactly. And I was not really able to. Sometimes I can do that, sometimes I can't. This time I didn't. So I want to ask you, is the discomfort because you feel that a religious believer might hear my words and feel put down? Or is the discomfort something about your own religious beliefs? That's my question.
I don't believe it's either one of those. I believe that this is an area that I've looked at very closely in myself, and when I hear almost anyone picking and choosing and setting up groups, I feel an underlying pain and discomfort there that I resonate with, and am aware. I believe there's a discomfort and a pain within this group that's perhaps not articulated, that I'm aware of. And it's an arising that that I think is here and I think has been unspoken. And I would like to bring it up.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for bringing it up. A little earlier, I said that this process here, I feel has a kind of a personal cost to me. I think that what I hear you expressing is another side of that, if I can put it that way. let me run this by you. Tell me if it rings a bell. I have a very definite perspective, and I'm going to share it without quarter. Now, I'm not the first human to do this. In every generation, there are people who speak exactly as I speak, precisely. I can go back in time and notice them. Yeah, their metaphors are different because that's a historical and linguistic thing. And their scientific knowledge is different because science marches on. But the basic idea that there's some kind of hierarchy of understanding is one that I embrace. And I don't think that mentioning it and shining a light on it is a put down of anyone. Not everyone is equipped to discuss these matters in this way, but I'm not going to let that stop me from discussing them in this way. And anything else is just collateral damage. No one has to tune into this. No one is forced to listen to what I'm saying. I'm a destroyer. I am Kali. There's too much bullshit, I say. That's my point of view. Other ones might say, Robert, you're taking the very heart out of life. The beautiful thing is bhakti and our devotional practices, and this is how we gain meaning. Or Robert, you're injuring people by telling them I'm really smart and maybe you aren't. Oh, I'm sorry. My intelligence was suppressed for a very long time. I had it, but I wasn't allowed to speak it. But I'm done with that, man. I'm done with any kind of self-restriction whatsoever. It doesn't exist for me anymore. So if that wounds you, I'm sorry. I mean that. I'm deeply sorry. I don't want anybody to be wounded, but I know that some people will. But if I let that stop me, that I just want to be kind, continually kind, then I would be a bleeding heart. And I'm not a bleeding heart. I'm a Kali. Just a different role.
Well,
any comment, please?
I accept that, and I'm not sure what the step beyond Kali is, but perhaps I'm coming from there, that there's something beyond impermanence. Well, an acceptance of impermanence is a step. And then there's a place where emptiness comes in and everything arises from that place of emptiness.
Excuse me. Are you there now, brother?
I am here.
Are you in the state that you're talking about, or this is a recollection?
No, this is for me pretty much all the time.
Okay, well then you have nothing to dispute with what I'm saying. If that's really the case, we're in the same boat.
I don't dispute what you're saying. But what I am saying is that sometimes stopping there causes discomfort, and it doesn't always have to.
Oh, well, you know what? I really don't appreciate this approach, because if you're here to educate me, don't.
I'm not trying to educate you.
Yes,
I'm
you are.
telling
What you're saying is, Robert, you've come so far, but there's some place beyond that. I know what it is. Let me elucidate that. I'm not buying it, man. I'm done with that bullshit. And what I'm telling all of the rest of us here is be done with that bullshit. Find the ground of your own motherfucking being. Not give me a lecture on how to find mine.
You don't want to hear what I found?
I don't want to hear what you have found when you start out this way. No, of course not. It's a terrible approach. There are approaches. I've discussed this with all kinds of people, and I'm totally willing to, but not when you are the authority. I won't buy it. Okay?
No,
All right, well, that's the way it is then. You don't have any use for me. And that's what I meant about a personal cost. You have no idea how beautiful this is, what I'm speaking. You're blind to it. You see pain in it. Well, that's too bad. It's beautiful. And a lot of people are telling me that it is. I know that it is. The women of wisdom have gathered behind me. They're producing this book of my words and these images, Rashani, and they're all doing all these crones of great wisdom. Have read the book and said, this guy's good. Give him a little push. So if you don't like it, fuck off, okay? You don't have to like what I'm saying. Fine if you don't. But I just don't want you to come here and educate me, man. What an idea. You come here and listen to an hour of this and now you want to teach me something? It better be good. I could pull a Nisargadatta because what he would do is say, now get out of here and don't come back. And I do feel like saying that to you, but I won't. I would rather that you come to understand what I've just said in a reasonable way and give me the same space you're giving yourself. That's all I'm asking for. If you think you got it figured out, then grant me the same space. I got my thing figured out. So you can have your world, and I'll have my world. And in my world, I'll be speaking to many people who enjoy this kind of thing and have read my book and loved it and all that. That'll be my world. And in your world, you will not cause any pain to anyone. And that's fine. We both have our lives. Okay, I'm sorry that we had to descend into egoic matters.
That's how it is.
That's how it motherfucking is. And
that's how it is.
Yes, David, and the thing that I think people like about me and that I like about me is that this is the way it motherfucking is. And that's motherfucking fine with motherfucking me. And when someone says, well, Robert, you know, that's so cool. Howard said, you know, the thing I like about you is, yeah, you know about all this Buddhism, but you laugh about it. That's why I laugh. I understand that Tom has no choice. I get that. I get it. I'm not angry with him. It's just a role. I am speaking as an elder and a man of wisdom, and I know it. I'm not on an ego trip about it. I'm not saying I'm the best thing since sliced bread. This is just this. I'm just occupied. I'm a link in a chain. I'm just doing my little bit. Then the flower falls off the stalk, as John was saying. This isn't some kind of permanent situation. That's why I can participate in it in such an open-hearted way and even appear foolish if that's what has to happen. It's only momentary. If you found something beyond that, mazel tov, baby, bow to it, do whatever you have to. It's great. It's not me. I'm sane and in this world alive. And in my world, people die. And everything they were disappears along with them. And that's beautiful. It's the impermanence in life that brings this beauty, if you only knew it. As soon as you can embrace the impermanence of a kiss, you can really kiss someone. Otherwise, it's just habit. It really is. Impermanent sex is the only kind to have. Please take my word for it. As John was saying, no plastic flowers. No plastic sex toys either. If you get what I'm trying to say. Okay, I'm crazy and I'm ranting. Let's get on with this. Who has a serious comment that will bring us back down to planet Earth?
What I have found that impermanence obliterates all role models. And there's a tendency in the spiritual community to assign certain qualities in one who might be seen as teaching as a role model in their behavior in life. And impermanence obliterates that. There are no role models. There's no role model that you could compare Robert or anybody else. And those who are doing role models are being critiqued, whether it's Adyashanti or Ramana Maharshi or whoever it is, those who are playing those roles and looking at a role model for something maybe you'd want to do, but that person isn't doing. That's bullshit, in my opinion. And I like in fellowship to be with people who aren't doing that, because it clutters the fellowship.
It clutters the fellowship. I like that. I'm sorry, John, I've interrupted.
So there are no role models. While I have a chance, I'd like to do a call out for the birds that I hear singing. You must have some nice, happy birds in your neighborhood.
We do, but we also have 4 young cats who were born here 3 or 4 months ago, 5 months ago, whenever, and they're just coming of age. So the birds really have to watch their ass this year. These are feral cats, supposedly feral, although Catania feeds them now, so they're like midway between a kept cat and a street cat. Oh God, this is so much fun. It is. It is. I hope you've forgiven me by now, Tom, but you really needed to be told off, in my view. Because truly, this is the idea here is not that you're going to progress me to the next step. I mean, I had said at the outset that that's not what we're doing here. There is no next step. This is it. This is all we got. This is all we got. This is all we've got, this fellowship at the moment. All of us are here in this space, and this is it. I feel so fortunate to be in a space with these intelligent, sensitive people. I really mean that. And my Facebook page also. I love my Facebook page. It took me years to get that. John can tell you, and other people who followed my work years ago, I had this beautiful chat room, the Dr. Robert Forum, and we discussed things mostly from a psychological point of view on that deal, not so much spirituality as the Facebook page. And one day, some vandals just trashed it and put swastikas and horrible pornography all over the page. And I got some guy I knew to try to stay ahead of it and clean it up and put in, this was on a channel called 4chan, which is now kind of famous for being this way, but it was a struggle. And then in the old days on Facebook, John can tell you this, he started a group and he asked me to help him admin it. So as the admin, I'd always be getting into these battles with people, the battle royale over the meaning of one thing or another. It was so boring. I was, shit, man. And that's what I was saying to Tom. I don't want to hear that. Well, why should I? Why don't? My days of listening to instruction are over. There is no more. This is what John was saying. Sorry, now I'm back to your theme, John. I went awry. What you were saying was exactly right. If in impermanence there are no masters, there's no pattern. This is a once upon a once. It's what it is right now. It's impermanent. You can't touch it. You can't hold it. You can't make anything out of it. You can't improve it. It just is what it is. And what it is to you is what it is to you. And what it is to me might be something entirely different. It's like when I was doing spiritual teaching, one analogy I would say to explain this, I would say, let's say these two guys are sitting on a park bench and this really beautiful babe walks by swinging her butt, you know? And one guy says to the other, boy, I'd like to cut me a slice of that. And the second guy says, hey, wait a minute, that's my sister. Now you see, it's the exact same stimulus, but it's two different minds. There's nothing permanent in it. That's what you are, your ego. It's everything that you think is important is you. And then you call that the ego, and you think that there's some progress in scraping it off your shoe like some dog shit. No, there isn't. That is you. Going back to what Kirsten was asking about earlier, if we go back to early first months of life, a lot of impressions are gained during that time precognitively, entirely precognitively. We never will have a word for them, and we won't even know they're there. We can't know they're there because we weren't there when they were formed. The me I am now was not present when I was 3 months old. That happened later in life, that there became a separate sense of self. So this sense of self that everybody wants to have these religious ideas about, that's just a bunch of bullshit. Nobody knows that. The higher self and all this crapperoo, fuck that. Just fuck it, man. Don't come here and start to lecture me about higher planes. I don't want to hear that bullshit. This is it. And if it isn't it, and you're aspiring to the next thing, you are deluded, I say. If you disagree, you have every right. That's my message. If you're in a sense of aspiration, you are hypnotized by the idea of transcending this. There's no transcendence. This is it. There's no other place. There never is. There never will be. Okay, enough of that. Who wants to get involved here?
I'd like to say something. In the discussion of impermanence, and I've talked with Robert about this before, I've been in a couple of situations where I've almost been killed. And a couple where guns are on me, a couple I put myself in a situation. And what I found interesting about being in one situation in particular was turning around, having a gun pointed at my stomach by a guy shaking, and thinking to myself, well, I better not do anything quickly, because if he's shaking, this gun that's pressed against my gut might go off. And it felt like an eternity, and someone came out of a closed area, and the guy almost flinched, and almost, but he didn't. And the robbery was over. And the one thing that I carry with me now is how precarious to dance on that wire at that moment when you have no control. I know that's what's really real right now. Hey, by the way, Tom, Robert, a couple of years ago, almost kicked me off Facebook.
Yeah. Well, you see, that's what I was saying earlier. What I'm doing here comes with a personal cost, because I'm really letting it hang out. And I am an elitist. I just am. And the reason that I am is quite simple, if you really want to hear it. I know we're all in the same boat as human beings. As John said, I see equality. We're all in the same wheel. But our talents are so widely varied. There are Einsteins on this planet, and there are idiots on this planet. And what I'm saying is, although there are some Einsteins who are religious, there are some, I know that. And for them, I have respect, because they've gone into it deeply. And they found something through their investigations, and I accept that. But religion is also, and especially New Age spirituality and non-duality, that's a hiding place for people who really don't have sufficient mental capacity to understand these matters. So they don't take it on. They buy an explanation that is received from above and buy into it. And they are hypnotized by their own buying in. And this permanent self is one of those, in my view, in my opinion, in my experience. The permanent self is a kind of lie that we tell ourselves, because the idea of personal extinction is unthinkable. You may be able to think about it in words. That's one thing. And that is where religion and spirituality is in my boat. I don't see any beauty in it. I see delusion, except for this 1%, as I always say, or 5% or 10%, whatever it is, where I'm happy in that slice of religion and spirituality, if you want to call it that. What I'm speaking here, let's call it philosophy is a better word. I am speaking here philosophically as a kind of Stoic. Would have been recognized by the Romans and Greeks. This is Stoicism that I'm talking about here. You don't have to buy it, Tom, but I don't buy all this non-duality bullshit, as John was saying. It's nothing. It doesn't contribute to our sense of understanding. It's a will-o'-the-wisp that you buy into because some authority told you that that's the way things are, and you bought it. And if you don't believe me, just be non-dual, and it's over. You don't have to. I won't exist anymore. You don't need me. You won't care what I say. You won't come here with expectations of enlightening me either. You'll see that it's all just you. That's what non-duality is. It's all just you. It's all it is. Everything you see, think, and feel is you. They don't exist out there. There may be reference points for them out there. I think there are, because that's how we survive as animals. We have to touch things and eat our food and reproduce and all that. That's kind of out there, but it isn't what we see. There's something out there, but what we make of it is me. That's non-duality, not a bunch of beliefs about ultimate understanding. The idea of ultimate understanding is rat poison to an intelligent mind. It's rat poison. Final understanding, rat poison, I say. But I'm a Kali. If you're a Bhakti, have at it, man. I'm going on like this because that burr got under my saddle. It's the first time anyone's tried that on me in this forum. And it's so much not what I want to do. That's not what we want to do here. Come here and lock horns with Robert, tell him how much he's hurting everyone. Oh, fuck. Okay, I'm sorry. On to the next thing.
Can I ask a question, Robert?
Please do. Gareth.
It's from the book, page 25. If it's okay, I read a sentence.
Please do.
It says, I did nothing to awaken. An old friend had been pointing out to me various ways in which I was wrapped up in egotism. So that may have loosened the lacings a bit. Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, sure. If someone comes to me with a desire for freedom, I can tell that person that you have to observe yourself for a while and see what needs to be freed and what it needs to be freed from. And a lot of those things from which we need to be freed are attachments to likes and dislikes and my reputation and what people think of me and what kind of appearance I'm putting on and whether people like me or not and all that. Those are attachments. That's the ego. And so what my friend was telling me, my friend Walter was showing me more than tell, it was more show than tell. He would put me in positions where I would be forced to see that I was acting like an idiot. He was good at it. He was an amazing teacher. Then when you see that, if you're fortunate, you go, shit, I'm doing that. And after you see that for a few times, then you may not always want to just defend this I as if it was the, the greatest gem in the universe and you got to just take care of it and make sure nothing bad happens to it. You might say, gee, I've got this and so does everyone else. It's almost like a rash or gonorrhea or something. Just not going to. Well, Gar and John was referred to this dream that I had. That was the dream. In this dream, I'm rowing. I'm out to sea and I'm rowing. And it's one of these gray days where the ocean is slate gray and so is the sky. And so the horizon line is almost non-existent. It's just like being inside a gray sphere, featureless. And I'm rowing, And it's the paradoxical dream language because although I'm rowing, and I should be looking back from where I came with the sea behind me, it's the other way around. I'm rowing, but I'm headed out to sea. And I feel compelled to turn around. And when and I'm seeing nothing in front of me but an infinity of gray. I turn around, and behind me is this cliff, headlands, like the white cliffs of Dover or something. And on there is this giant mansion, maybe 100 or more rooms. And it's moldering away. It's rotting, and some windows are broken. It needs maintenance. And the only thing that's stopping it from getting swept down into the sea is this very elaborate construction of buttresses and supports. And I see that I had been the one that was putting all those buttresses and supports in there to hold this thing up. That was my entire labor in life, in a way, if you're really honest. And I was rowing away from that and never needed to do it again. And I felt this intense freedom in this dream. And I woke up, and it was pretty shocking to me because I got the feel, I knew what it meant in a way. I really knew what it meant. And it was very powerful. And it happened around the time that I had this Kensho experience that I wrote about in the first chapter or two of The 10,000 Things, which you've read, yes.
Yeah.
Where I saw, I'm not making this. This is all just here. This is happening. I could just sit here. I'm not making anything.
Thank you, Robert.
Anything more to say? It's nice to have you here. I appreciate your presence.
I really liked it. So would it be beneficial if I hanged out with other guys? Then we would point out if we could see each other's egotism. Would it be useful?
If you have a friend that you can do that with, that'd be wonderful. Yeah, but don't make a game out of it. That could easily become some kind of gotcha game, and that's not the idea. It's not like you're trying to embarrass the guy. It's just somebody who would tell you, that thing you said, it sounded a little fishy, or whatever, something like that. See, someone who can say, I'm not sure if I go along with that. More like that. And then you talk to someone like that, and well, that's what I did with Robert Hall for years. That's what I was talking about earlier. We're just very honest with each other. And I've done that with John Troy. We haven't had that much time together. We had one glorious, we had 2 times together, extended 1 week duration both times. And I remember them so fondly. They're just so excellent.
Robert, would you say when you know that everything is you, like when a fear pops up, or some anger comes, or some anxiety, I don't know, I guess if you're human, I guess you feel that sometimes, but if the knowing that that is also you, is that somehow, how would I say, some kind of relief in that? Do you understand how I mean? Is it like, it's painful, yes, but it's still me. It's, in that sense, is it more okay than if I separate it, that this is something happening to me?
That's what you would have to try to find out. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
You could experiment with that. In other words, you could tell yourself, I'm going to try out this idea that I heard from Robert. I'm going to try to embrace what is arising, not feel this is happening to me. But it's like when I broke my arm. There I am. I tripped over a wire and fell onto a concrete deck. And it was a very bad fall. I also smashed my elbow pretty badly, but it didn't break. But the arm broke up here. And there I am lying on my back on this concrete. It took me a few seconds to comprehend what had occurred. So much for being in the moment. See, it was way after the fact. And then here I am lying there, see, and I could say, why did this happen to me? But that would be a very ineffective question. It wasn't that. The only question that occurred to me is, now what do I do? And that is a good question.
Mm.
The question, why do these things always happen to me, is not a useful question. It doesn't lead anywhere. It doesn't help you deal with anything. The way that you deal with something is to say, this is, if you can't say this is me, then at least say this is mine. Everything that happens to me is mine to deal with, to chew up and swallow bite by bite. That's what living is. I have this now. Sometimes the now is beautiful. I've got a nice meal in front of me and the leisure to eat it. Other times someone's got a gun pressed up against my belly, but it's all mine. See, it's me. It is my life. That's the idea, not to sit in judgment of your anger or something. And there's nothing wrong with anger. We're just told that there is because people are afraid of becoming homicidal. That's a human fear that I might go off the rails and do something crazy. See? And some people do. Okay. So you see, we human beings are very frightened by our animal nature. So that's why we have religion and all that, to try to put that in a box. And I'm someone who I don't have it in a box. I have had, so I know the difference. Much easier now because I'm in my 70s, so there's not all that much drives to box up anymore. So that's why it becomes a bit easier. That's why you have these old fellows of wisdom. They're not too many 30-somethings who've got their shit together. They can get on stage with flowers, as John was saying, and make a good show of it. John had this really crazy guy. What's his name again? Bentino, right? Bentino? Tell that story, John, about when Bentino came to see you.
Bentino. He was making in his early rounds, and he was a guest on a radio show, and he said he was going to move to North Carolina, and they were looking at a piece of property right up the mountain from where my son was living. So I said, well, I can put you in touch with some folks around here. And we were having one of our little get-togethers up in the mountains. We had about 80 some people coming together, everybody just pitching in and going with the flow, and nobody charging any money for anything. And Bentinho wanted to have a notch to speak. And so in that process, I was privy to a backstage email where he was emailing everybody out that he was like the Messiah, and he wanted to be sitting on a rock in Asheville where hordes of people could come by and kiss his feet. And we go on and on, many little things like that back then. So I contacted and says, I can't honestly feel good about you speaking to our family, our extended family, and so I'm going to uninvite you to do that, but you can come. You can come and be a part of us if you like. And so he did show up. and he was a little embarrassed about it all. And I had dinner with him, and several of my friends had dinner with him at the same time. We all felt the same sense that this guy was really on a narcissistic ego trip and was fleecing the flock. And that's not the kind of fellowship that we enjoyed being around. And so then I had other people who had been in a relationship with Bentinho who confessed their own stories with him, and it started growing. But you could see what was going down and what has become, the new age Messiah, Bentinho. And that guy is so full of shit. I mean, it's just all about Bentinho. And Bentinho stops at his skin. It stopped. There's no fusion with reality around Bentinho. No. So I've had the fate of being backstage pretty much across the board. I've just been part of what my storyline has been. I've been backstage everywhere, and backstage ain't like the stagecraft, and it's pretty revealing, and that goes from Muktananda to Ramana Maharshi to all of them, all of these so-called spiritual figures. Backstage, it's ordinary human beings, except there's a little more narcissism evident in those who are doing the stagecraft and positioning as the spiritual teacher and the guru and all that. And then they have their God squads, and then it becomes taboo to be equal to the one on the dais. And then the hierarchy starts, and the bullshit starts, and the goals are put in, and the practice is set forth, and they're branding your own sentience and and charging your royalty for it, and you've got to recruit new business. It's a Ponzi scheme. And I feel the same way about them that Robert does. Fuck them all. I mean,
John,
and I've seen a lot in stage, and that's just what I see. And to me, it's not some spiritual revelation. It's just common sense. It's just common sense stuff.
I don't know how common it is. It is sense, though. It's really amazing to me that certain historical figures are seen as infallible fonts of truth, while those of us who are sitting here speaking truthfully are called into question. It's really absurd in a way. We can only speak our own truths after all. What else is there? There isn't anything else but your truth. There is no truth out there, some kind of overwhelming truth that someone will explain to you and now you'll know. What an idea. And that's the idea that
They're all plastic.
So, John,
They're all plastic flowers.
the only thing I'm wondering as I listen to you, John, is which one of us, if they had a rant contest, and you'd have to go on stage and rant, you know, for as long as you liked, and then Donald Trump would pick the winner. I wonder who would win the rant contest, you or me? Clearly, one of us would go.
I can rant backstage. I rant backstage. And hanging with you is like hanging backstage.
No, it's this thing down to something watchable, and it'll be like this radical testament to nonsense.
I love that Don Troy Zinger God Squad. That's pretty funny. Mod Squad.
But you know, I seriously want to. A lot of people have come to the meeting, and there are a lot of people still here, many. And I wish that someone who's come here and actually doesn't just want to laugh and be silly would speak about items of concern or questions, any of that, because that's really why I show up to this.
When you realize that this is it, you have to trust your own self, and nothing is, you trust your own self really, because be your own light, like Krishnamurti say, be a light unto yourself, and and I think what's really important here is the takeaway from all these conversations is how do we get to the point where we can dehypnotize ourselves from believing that there's authority, that is something that is so important for us, and we have to believe in it, and we can find our own way, and this is something, that we need to find, like you say in the past Zooms, I think you said, keep repeating, I'm alive, I'm alive, I'm alive, and that's something that I mean, it's something that might help, it could help, and for me it has helped.
Is it helping? Is that helping?
Yeah.
Well,
I think
then keep doing it, because you see, the thing that's hanging a lot of us up is that we don't really know that we're alive. No,
right.
we of course, if someone would ask you, "Are you alive?" you'd say, "Of course I am." But this is more about knowing that you're alive while you're making toast or something. See, this may be the last slice of toast I ever have. I'm alive and living. There's no guarantee that living will continue for even a moment longer. I'm not saying you're about to die, but it's good to. I think it's American Indian, if I'm Native American, I should say. That's the right word.
Yeah.
He would this warrior would wake up and say, today is a good day to die. There's that's sanity. Well, so Jorge, the idea that I'm getting across here, I hope I'm getting it across, is simply that the teachers of the past, a lot of them were simply self-deluded, but there were a lot who weren't, and they were really serious people. But their words have been misunderstood and distorted in order to fit in with religion. But these people weren't talking about religion. The Middle Ages, see, the Middle Ages Zen teachers were not talking about attaining anything permanent. Not at all. They would have wanted their mouths washed out with soap if they talk about permanence. What they were teaching is, this that is standing before me right now is that. You are the Buddha. That's what they're teaching. And the students couldn't stand that. The students could not stand that idea, because then they are responsible. Then there's no attainment. There's this.
Right.
Okay. See, if I can always say there's the attainment in the future, then right now I'm only operating on 2 cylinders or whatever it is. And so, if I don't get her done, well, next week or next year, I will. And this is what Krishnamurti is teaching, UG Krishnamurti. Robert Saltzman is nothing new, nothing at all. It's just it's just a restatement in today's terms, in today's vernacular, of something that has been said for a long, long time, and that is that permanence is a delusion. It's a religious belief that has no identifiable real-world basis. It's a belief, simply a belief.
Yeah.
The eternal soul, that's a religious belief. And the Buddha was having none of it, by the way. So people who consider themselves Buddhists, who talk about attaining some kind of permanence, are really. So you were saying that you have to be a light unto yourself.
Yeah.
Yes. So the question that I have for you, Jorge, is how can you trust that? What can you trust?
I guess you can only trust your feelings, you know, your what your thoughts. And I think you once said, you know, sometimes trust more your feelings than your thoughts, you know. But I mean, that sometimes comes to me like just trust yourself, you know. I mean, that would be my answer.
Okay, that's a good answer, because that's all we really can do. And I know that to a lot of people that feels deeply unsatisfactory. They just do not want to trust themselves. They want to take their spiritual authority and project it onto some system.
Correct.
Jesus said how it is, and I just have to learn that and follow it. Or the Buddha said such and such. And in that process, there's this tremendous misunderstanding has arisen, because if you believe the Jesus story, it's you who believes it. There are other people who hear the story and don't believe it. They believe the Buddha story, or they believe the Muhammad story. And so it's always your own authority and nothing else. That's all you can trust, because that's all there is. So when I say it's all me, which was your question, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that there is no outside authority. Anything that appears to be authoritative outwardly only appears that way because you have judged it to be authoritative. It's as simple as that. There are people who think these televangelists are authoritative. Lots of people like that. They send them money. We have to be our own authority. And that is deeply frightening, because we know that we're really not sufficient to conduct our lives in a rational and sane way. We just aren't. We're wounded.
Right.
And we see that woundedness reenacted outwardly. We have our relationships fall into problems and error. We're not able to conduct ordinary affairs without somehow screwing it all up. And we want to, and then we want to imagine that we can attain this other state where none of that obtains, none of that exists. And, you know, that's just a faint hope. It doesn't really work that way. The only thing we've got is this, not some future state where we all get all the ducks in a row, right?
Absolutely. It is just like you say, Robert, because it's something that you know, other people's authority is something that you can't really accept, because it's something that isn't something that you have found to be true. So, you know, on what basis can you accept someone's authority? I mean, everybody's different, and what may be true for the tele-evangelist dude, and might be something that's not true for you, you know? So that's why...
or it might not be true at all. See, this
exactly.
This is not just a question of everyone's different and each person has his truth or her truth. If it were that way, that would make matters very simple, but it's not that way. The fact is that some people's truths are very meaningful and others are not, are only reactive. They're ill-considered, they're not considered at all. The ground is not known, so the truth just becomes the way I was raised, as they put it, or whatever the excuse is for clinging to some pet beliefs. I am not speaking to everyone here. I'm speaking to the people who are tired of believing.
Right.
And some of them have read my book. Some people who are tired of believing have read my book and were relieved of the need to believe in anything. And those are the people who see value in what I'm doing. Other people unavoidably, and I'm sorry about this, Tom, but that's just the way it is, will be hurt by hearing what I say. Because I find myself needing to be vehement because everyone's used to blah, blah, blah. So if there's no vehemence coming, like a U.G. Krishnamurti was good at that. Krishnamurti was good at it too in his way, Trier. That's what I'm doing. I'm not going to tell you you're equal to me because we all have our own ideas. I'm going to say, if you really have an idea, put it on the table. Otherwise, get out of the way. And that's, you see, people see that as if I'm somehow on an ego trip or this is some kind of narcissism, but it isn't, not at all. It's not that at all. It's just seeing. See, it's being awake. And it's easy to say I'm awake, but it's really not that easy to really be awake. It requires quite a bit of honesty, self-honesty about what you know and don't know. And what you don't know is almost everything. What you don't know is almost everything. So if you can be in that frame of mind, then I say you will be awake. And if you can't, you won't, but you'll imagine that you are. And that's the critique of the whole world of non-duality and Vedanta and all of this. This is a refuge for people who imagine that they know something. And instead, I wish they would focus on what they don't know. That would be the place to put your attention. Try to say, what do I really know? And make a list. If there's more than a couple of things on that list, you're in deep shit. That's what I'm trying to share, Jorge.
And
Jorge, if it's okay, I want to cut this short and give some of these other people a chance. It's great to hear from you, Jorge. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Good. So I can't see you now. Hold on.
Okay. I think we're back. So
yeah.
Go ahead, please.
Hey, thank you for the recording from last week. Or like a few weeks back, I've been listening to that a lot. The stuff you told me, I took it on my phone and I've been carrying it around with me and listening to it like 50 times or whatever. And what I'm at the time being, I don't really know what to say actually. It's not like I have a clear question at all. I wanted to go back to what you were saying about in the beginning of this meeting about eating what's on the plate.
Oh yes, yeah.
And accepting your truth in this moment. Basically, what it comes down to is basically simply that I find that it's I wrote down that it's much easier kind of thing to eat a spiritual painkiller, and always what it is that I find that there's kind of like a hangover or something. Basically, I don't like where I am. I don't like eating what's on the plate at the moment because it's kind of like I don't know, like I'm finding it hard to find a job. I'm living with my sister. I'm unemployed. There's all these kind of things on my plate that I don't want. And I kind of see that, well, it's a kind of the hangover of also having, it's not an excuse, but the whole thing of like being on the spiritual journey and thinking that there was, basically trying to renounce everything and leave everything for so many years now, leaving my job behind, selling my apartment and going like on a journey kind of thing. And then, coming back and finding that it's hard to get a job and it's hard to get back in again. And basically just, I see it's so much easier to make a story about it. I see that all the time. There's this, how should I say it? Like it's easier to go, how should I say it? Like fall back into magical thinking. It's kind of like, it was much more comfortable to tell myself that, it's kind of like, whatever is happening is happening exactly the way it's meant to be for you, for your awakening or whatever, And now I'm kind of feeling that, well, I guess the question or whatever the question is kind of like, it's this thing of like seeing that, well, I'm trying to digest the fact that there's no doer here. Like you were telling me last time when you were speaking, you were telling me, there's no one speaking there. And I believe that, but I don't want to believe it. I want to see it for myself. And I want to basically, it's kind of like a hard to find, I'm doing the best I can. I feel like I'm trying to basically just do what, I can only do so much. I can only like apply for a job, and I can only like try to, get my shit together again. And at the same time, watching the whole thing, just trying to see it for myself, that there is no doer and it's just unfolding. But it's so easy to go into a theory about it.
Yeah, the thing is, this is a very fine line, and we all have to deal with it. And that is that there actually is wisdom in this world. And so we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. In other words, I think I'm saying things that are generally useful to an awakening mind.
Yeah.
The thing is that you don't want to believe me. What you want to do is see within yourself that you are not the doer.
Yeah.
And there's no way to actually make that happen.
No.
The best thing we can do, I think, if we're able, is to observe that my words, when I speak, there isn't some little me inside my head writing those words down and then they come out the mouth.
Yeah.
They come effortlessly. I mean, I'm speaking to you now and I have no idea what I'm going to say next. No idea. It comes out of my mouth. I hear it at the same time you do. I can go into this other mode. I was trained to do this in psychology, where I first rehearse the thing that I intend to say, see if it's suitable or not for the purpose, and then utter it. But that's a whole different way of speaking. The way I'm speaking now is pure improv. I have no idea what I'll say next. When you speak, try to listen to your own speech as if you were someone else hearing it. And you may have this sensation firsthand, and then you won't have to believe me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes. I was thinking when you were saying that, I mean, like, even if you did rehearse something to say it, you would still not be the doer because there is no doer, right?
Yes, there's no little person in there deciding, Robert told me to try to listen to the sound of my own voice as if I were someone else, so now I should do that. See, there's no one to enforce this.
And that's, I guess, what I was trying to say before, that if I assume there is no doer, which I think there isn't, but I have to experience it for myself, then it's so easy to resolve into magical thinking and thinking, well, you know, if I'm not doing this, then, you know, what's the point? Like, you know, whatever, you know, it's going to unfold the way it does. And, you know, I don't have to be responsible for it, kind of thing. I'm just going to sit around and see what happens.
That's a total misunderstanding. A lot of people fall into that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a nihilism in a way. The part of you that feels that it needs to try and wants to try is part of the whole process. You don't just decide to pull that out like a rotten tooth and throw it away or something. It's part of it. Non-duality, whatever arises, is this, including feelings that I should do this, I mustn't do that, I need to do this. Those are all real. The feelings are real, but the doer, the apparent doer behind all that is not real. That's imaginary. That's what I'm saying. And this is what can be realized, that these feelings will always arise, but there's no one making them. The feelings are you. That's what myself is. Feelings, thoughts, perceptions, fears, desires. That is myself. That is Robert. I don't know if that makes sense.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, here you know. Does that make sense?
No, I'm not sure, to be honest.
Okay,
I'm
good.
not sure.
Good.
I will listen to it again a couple of times. I want to ask you again, if you can say it again, basically just the direction you were telling me before, basically to kind of like listen to myself as I'm speaking now, to kind of like listen to myself in like a third person kind of perspective,
yes,
right?
You got the idea. I really hesitate to recommend this kind of thing because
I know
it's good for some people and not for others. Some people will take that idea and overdo it and end up splitting themselves into an observer and the observed. And that's the opposite of what we're really trying to elicit here. The feeling here is to see that the whole thing is a flow, all of it. The thoughts, the feelings, the apparent hearer of the thoughts, and all of this is one flow, that nobody's doing that. So when I ask you to hear the sound of your own voice as if it were not you making the sound, but you hearing the sound, the idea there is simply that you might see that this is emerging without anyone having to be the doer.
And I can do the same thing with my thoughts, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So that's Danny, that I've given you a practice, and what I'm saying is I kind of, but no, because you've showed up here before, you've asked very good questions, and so this is tailored for you. I don't, because I've listened to you, and now I think this is okay, but I don't want everyone to start splitting themselves in half into the observer.
No.
Okay.
Listen, I hear what you're saying, because I started reading your book and I picked up this part where you were kind of like saying that, I think it was in your book, that it's so easy to create, you know, ego that is the observer. And I know this whole, and I'm not gonna, I hear this in a different.
What this is, you have to be sly like a fox. You just have to hide there, and at the last minute spring out and capture the prey. See, and that will be when you notice that words got said and you have no idea where they came from.
Yeah.
And see that there's a liberation in that, because then you can express yourself without having to take credit or blame for what's coming out.
Yeah.
Then what
That's
is
it.
Yes,
because many times this will happen by autopilot, but it will be coming with a, you know, like a whole story of criticism, like, why did you say that? And, you know, shut up.
That's natural, because that we've been trained that way. That is what society, culture at large wants its citizens to believe, that they are responsible and can even be held legally responsible for everything they say and do.
Yeah.
And that isn't because society loves your being and wants you to live an awakened life. They don't want you to live an awakened life. They want you to occupy your spot, do what you're told until you die, and get out of the way.
Yeah.
Someone else will make the money. So you see, we need to move away from that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm trying to be clear that this is not a teaching. We need to move away from that teacher-student role, because it's just part of the same old consumerism. And
Yeah.
yes, you get that. And what's neat, you're
Yeah.
on that trip, so of course you get it.
That's the brainwash, you know.
Yes, and you're paying them to brand, what John puts it this way, to brand your own sentience to you. Your own awakeness that's here right now is being sold back to you with the guru's brand name stamp on it.
Mm.
That's what John Troy was saying earlier, and that we need to step out of that model. And so I'm your friend here, but I'm not your teacher. I'm not in that.
Could you say that again in a different way? This thing about being sold your aliveness back to you from the guru, in a sense?
Yes, sure. What I am saying is that from my perspective, as you see, I don't know if Richard Elkin is still here or not. Probably not. He's somebody who had this powerful mind expansion when he read the 10,000 Things, and he wrote about that it had capsized his boat. And the boat was these many years of Buddhist practice, the whole thing, serious meditation and all the rest of it. And he still had some anxiety. He still had something hanging him up. And when he read the 10,000 Things, that went away. So the question that we're discussing here is not how that can go away, because that can't be put into words. But we're pointing out that the spirituality and the values that most of us have been taught are an impediment to actually being what we are. What we are is sentience. It's awareness. It's what hears and feels and thinks. It's this aliveness, I call it. John Troy calls it sentience. But it's the same thing. It's the ability to feel and perceive and to think. We all have it. It's here right now. That's awakeness. But what happens is people find their lives unsatisfactory. And some go to shrinks, and some go to prostitutes, and some go to spiritual teachers. And the spiritual teacher says, you're feeling uncomfortable. And that's because you don't meditate properly or say the holy name of God properly, or whatever the thing is. It's whatever, it could be anything. They are taking your sentience, your awakeness, and putting it in their frame. And that frame could be chanting the names. It could be bowing 10,000 prostrations. It could be chanting the name of the Buddha, whatever it is. They tell you, do this, and then you'll be awake. And what I'm saying is, you're awake right now. Just see what it is and embrace it.
Mm.
Do you understand that?
Yeah.
I'm saying that there's no difference between you and me right now.
Yeah, there's no practice to get here.
In your mind, you imagine that you need to understand the next thing or practice the next thing in order to be the way I am. But that is not true. You're that way now. You're that way now. I see it, but you don't.
Well, that's the joke, right? That's the paradox.
Of course it is. I look into your eyes and I see the same intelligence I see in my own eyes. Obvious.
And still I want to get there, how to get there.
Yeah, how to get there, of course. That's the problem. And that's why people like me have to come along and upset the fucking apple cart. Because you see, the apple cart is all this guru spirituality bullshit that gives you a project. And there is no project. There's no project. This is it. for better or worse. This moment is all you have. You have no assurance whatsoever of being in the next moment or the next day of your life.
And if you don't like the moment, you just accept that you don't like the moment.
Yeah, if you don't like the moment, your dislike is part of this moment.
Yeah.
But it still might be a nice day.
Yeah, sun is still up.
Yeah, right. And you're not in a hospital bed receiving the last rites either. So maybe you don't like it all.
No, I know. I know. It's about perspective. I mean, like, like you said the other time, like, in a few years, none of us is going to be here anymore, Like, we have to appreciate that we're alive.
There's other raised hands, so I want to move on. We could keep going.
Yeah, thank you.
But no, I see that you really, I'm so glad you read the book. I see that you got the idea. And that's...
I'm reading it.
Well, yeah, reading. Well, that makes me very happy. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Danny. I'll go to Paloma now. Go ahead, Paloma. Can you unmute you? Yeah.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi. Hola.
Hola.
¿Qué tal ese brazo? How's your
Ya,
arm?
ya mucho mejor. No,
Bueno.
ya no tengo pinche cabestrillo.
Vale, fenomenal, fenomenal. Me alegro mucho.
Ese pinche cabestrillo. Oh God, I spent 3 weeks with my arm strapped to my body after the doctor told me, if you move this, then you're going to need surgery and screws to hold this together. So don't move it for 3 weeks. It was,
wow.
Oh, it's intense.
How did you manage that?
What, say it again?
How did you manage that?
With difficulty. With difficulty. Plus I have a wonderful wife who made dinner for me and tied my hair back and washed my hands for me and stuff like that. But I'm okay. I'm good now. I can't lift it all the way, but it's coming along. It'll be a real arm again soon. So what do you have to bring us, Paloma?
All right. This really goes along with the exchange, the wonderful exchange you just had with Danny, is it?
Yeah.
And let's see if it comes up, if it comes out properly. Because what I wanted to ask you was this aliveness, this sentience. Would you say, when we talk about creativity in the kind of formal sense, creativity is something we do, as artists or anyone who does something creative. Although, it comes out naturally, whatever that is. There's this feeling that you do something. Maybe you even mediate in the flow of this creation. But if suddenly we find ourselves accepting or sensing this idea that we are not the doer, or if there is a doer, it's not us, right? Then I wonder if the same way that the moment comes up by itself, it seems, and you wouldn't know what you were going to say next, or I want to say something, but I'm not really sure how it's going to come out and if I'm going to be able to frame it properly. If that is the case, is all of that the moment as the past and the future? Is this creativity? Would you say this is the real essence of creativity? Because I was wondering, what you thought about it, what you felt about it.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
I've been involved in the arts most of my life in one way or another. So the word creativity comes up a lot. The times that feel most creative to me is when I don't have any awareness that I'm creating anything. Like I might be walking around, and I always have a camera with me when I'm walking. And I'll just notice something, and I won't really think anything about it. The camera will be out in my hand, and the photograph will be taken because I'm quick with it now. I've been photographing for so long, it's almost automatic. And then later, when I get home and view that photograph, then I will see what I saw in it. Not that I had saw something in it and had this intention to, create that idea. Is that getting at your question, Paloma?
Yeah. Yes, because, well, besides the fact that I have always considered myself an artist, and I'm just saying this because I felt like that when I was 6. The bad part was when I was 21 at art school, and then I actually, got sense of this, oh my God, I'm an artist. And that is the kind of hype about, being creative, which hinders so many artists, because when they don't have this direct channel through to their creations, sometimes they get, or we get very depressed. But, I wanted to kind of connect this. I mean, I think it's very interesting what you're saying, that it's when you look at what you've done that you actually see the creativity in it. If that's what you said, right?
What I'm saying is, if I look back on a photograph the day after and see it for the first time on the computer screen, because I work on digital photography now, but I used to develop it and see it come up for the first time in the developer, the image, I might be surprised entirely on what it really means or what it's about. At the time, it wasn't like I was drawing a cartoon or something and I had an idea. It was more that the seeing itself just happened and got recorded with the camera. And later I might get an idea, wow, I see what I was seeing then. Do you see it? It's hard to make this clear in words. I don't know if I'm succeeding.
No, I mean, I think it's wonderful because in that sense, isn't that what life is? I mean, life is pure creation, and when we do have that second to witness and to look at what's happening in front of our eyes, if we are able to gain or regain this sense of wonder, that is what's really going to set us apart from that idea of, being that little person in our head.
Well, are you a painter?
Actually, I've always written, and also I'm a filmmaker. Yeah, but I've done a lot of photography, as you can imagine. I mean, still photography and films.
Okay, well, in working with a camera, let's say, in working with a camera,
right?
If you have the kind of camera that has a viewfinder, so you're viewing through the lens. Have you ever worked with a camera like that, a reflex camera?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
Well, there's a way. Okay, when you do that, you're framing. You're putting the world in a frame. You're putting edges around it, like a rectangle or a square. When you do that, there's a way that rectangle can become your whole world. And you forget that there's anything outside of that. And you're just working on the harmony or whatever of that small space. Are you so far?
Yeah.
Okay, that's your creative space in this moment. You can't manage the whole world. You can't be creative for the universe. You've set, this is human creativity. You make rules of some kind, and within those rules, that's where the creation takes place.
But you know, Robert, I think this is really interesting what you've said. And I also have to say that even as an artist, if I want to use that hat, I am not so interested in art, you know. I am much more interested in life. And I see that, you know, life is so much more creative than anything I could come up with.
Brava! Brava! Ja mam dicho. That's it. If you do that, see, then you get to participate. This is what I'm getting at here, Paloma, in general. If you see your own limitations and stop trying to imagine that you are God or something like this, but are willing to be human, you can feel the creativity without thinking that you are the doer, to get to what Danny and I were talking about earlier. You don't have to be the doer. You can be the happening. You're not making this happening. You're the flower. You didn't make the plant. This is beautiful. And that, see, that for me, that's creativity. But some people don't like that idea because they think it's disempowerment. It's disempowering. So I don't care about art either. I mean, I do. I love books and photographs and paintings and dance and music and all that. I like them. But there's something that's more essential than all of that. And I think that's what you referred to, ¿verdad?
Yeah, claro. And you know what? When you talk about aliveness and sentience, which is something that I heard you talk about on this, I think you were with your other friend Robert. He's a Buddhist teacher in Los Santos. I'm not sure, and I heard you talking about aliveness, and I also heard you talk about the don't miss out on this second, and you almost had tears in your eyes right?
When I talk that way, Paloma, it often brings tears to my eyes because in a way, I'm preaching, and I realize that it's not going to do any good. If you understand that. And that's okay. I mean, you know, but that brings tears to my eyes because, see, I'm at that, I've been awake for a long time in this sense. And so I can't really lie to myself about much. And I'm at this point in my life where I'm beginning to have these illnesses and move toward the end of it all. And I would like to tell people who are younger and fresher than I am, try not to create so much mental suffering. I realize it doesn't really help to hear that, so that's why it brings tears to my eyes. It would be so much better if you could enjoy this for what it is than to try to make it into what you want it to be. It's never going to be what you want it to be, but if you get into it for what it is, you may like it. You may really like it. It's hard to understand, I know.
Together, you know, who are you, where are you?
If there really is human creativity, I'm saying, in considering your question, I've kind of been mulling it over as you spoke. If there is any, we're going to have to attune ourselves and expect to see something with very little influence. Then we may notice it. If we're looking for something very powerful, it won't be in that set. You won't find human creativity among the powerful aspects that really influence this world. What we call creativity is actually a recycling. Really, I see myself as a link, not as some kind of high-flowing paragon. And you see, if you get that, that's what the Buddha said. Try to understand that if you're a religious Buddhist. You have to stop making a God out of this guy. And then you'll understand. You really will. If you just see him not as a Jesus figure out of the Bible or something, but as a human being who was dissatisfied with life and hedonism, went into the world, had all kinds of experiences, and ended up sitting under a tree at peace. Wasn't a God. That's what you have to do if you want to. I mean, if that's what you're interested in. I was interested in that, and I found that it took. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not that esoteric. It's not esoteric at all. It's just that you have to give up these fantasies of power and prestige, and then it's easy. There's no staying power. See, you could think anything about Robert, or Robert could go on some narcissistic ego trip, refer to himself in the third person or something, and get completely carried away. Robert could do that in the third person. But you see, that's just a fantasy. All of this is just dust in the wind, baby. Sayonara. And if you get that, it's so easy. Then you don't have to believe anything. That's what John was saying also in this way. When you see impermanence, there's no heroes anymore. There's no. And so this idea that Danny and I were discussing about being a light unto oneself and all of this. Was it you, Danny? I think it was. That's how that happens. When you understand that everyone else is human too, including Nisargadatta or whatever. Nisargadatta actually would have thrown the guy out of the meeting. I was a little more gentle, not much. Because actually it's annoying to be preached at. I just hate it. I always did, even as a child. Fuck that. That's what I'm saying. That's what I highly recommend that as a default position. If somebody comes on that way, I would immediately say, I'm not too sure if I want to hear much more of this. And then you really have it. So if you get something from me, is what I'm saying, that's really great, but there's nothing much there, really. It has to be about you. There's very little nutrition in the meal I already ate and shit out. Who would want to eat that anyway? What an idea. Okay, God, I'm getting scatological. These meetings are so stimulating to me because these are such beautiful questions. And they're the kind of questions that don't occur to me any longer, but they did. And I remember how beautiful, these are beautiful questions. I mean, it's very stimulating to me to hear people who are thinking this way and not just want to, acquire. So.
You're queuing up. You're in a rush and you still have 20 people in front of you. You can't pull out a book to read. I'm just talking in general, that thing that, okay, life is creation. We talked about this, the sweetness of life being creation, and, but sometimes it's the opposite feeling. Sometimes the feeling of dead end, something is dead end, nothing's going on, it's like life feels as I am missing out on life because I'm just like, life is making me feel really bored or really like I'm opposing to this aliveness, which at this moment in time is not alive enough for me. Or I am the one that kind of, do you know what I mean? It's like the opposite from aliveness and sentience.
Besides, outside of your own experience, there isn't anything else. I can talk to you about what you just said, but I can't change it. You get that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what I see, well, I'll tell you about myself instead of addressing it from your point of view. Before I came to a certain understanding, Paloma, if I got in the wrong line at the supermarket, I feel really impatient, maybe grab a National Enquirer out of the newsstand and pretend to read it while I was being pissed off that I got in the wrong line and all that shit. And at a certain point, and this is what my personal confession here is, this is the center of it. This is the squishy part. See, it's hard to actually confess it. Something in me melted. And I just don't feel that way anymore. And I can't explain that. Anyway, that's it. Sorry. Now I have tears in my eyes. Because it's not my doing. See? And I can't explain that to you or anyone else, Paul. I cannot. Mm-hmm. What I'm trying to point out is that what I feel is not found in spirituality. That's not, if you want this kind of thing, it's like buying a box of chocolates. You wanted the solid ones, you only got the ones with the squishy centers. Fuck this. I want this box with the, I want Macalat in mine. That's the one I want. That's a great, that John Troy has a great product. We had it at Christmas. It was excellent. So it makes, he and Carol handmade, John's exercising his damaged shoulder by mixing this shit up in the kitchen. No, not in the kitchen, in the laboratory over in the old library. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It's something melted, and I can't explain that to someone. But what I can do is sit here and discuss it. And I did ask myself, is this narcissism or what? And I really don't think so. When I look at it, yeah, maybe, but that's not the point. The point is that what's being discussed here is actually very real. Mm-hmm. Yes, and people hear that. And I say, gee, that guy's really saying something. And I know that's true. And the same thing with John. When John speaks, I listen. I really do. Mm-hmm. That cat is really, he's not just jabbering. And that's all we've got. There aren't any perfect people. We all have our, Paloma, I'm damaged just like you, in different ways perhaps, but we're all damaged. Mm-hmm. That's what love is about. So when people talk about love, what they really mean is to embrace their own damage and embrace the damage of other people also. So,
embrace the damage. I like that.
Well, so then if somebody bores you, understand that the damage that you're feeling without being bored, this person is damaged. That's why you're being bored in that way.
Well, I'm being bored by myself, really.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's all yourself. Well, my mentor, Walter Chappell, was a great admirer of George Gurdjieff, the Russian mystic. Mm-hmm. Gurdjieff's friend and student was Walter's teacher. So I was very close to all that Gurdjieff work. And a lot of that Gurdjieff work was done while drinking round after round of Armagnac, French cognac. So these people were operating in a mind-altered space when they were carrying on all these shenanigans. So that's what Walter wanted to do with me, and we did that. We would sit on his floor drinking Armagnac, cognac at night, and sit up all night on sheepskins naked and talk about these matters that we're discussing here. See, this is what we really are. And of course you're bored. Animals get bored. My donkeys get bored and then they start to bray. Come on, Robert, come over here and let's fuck around. They're a lot more patient than I am. I've learned a lot of patience from my donkeys and from having a broken arm. Boy, was this a lesson. Everything happens for a reason.
Right.
Yeah, right. No, it doesn't. For all I know, it just happens.
It doesn't.
It happens. I had it strapped up like this, and I couldn't do anything. And the doctor had told me, if you don't jar this, don't fall again, don't bump into anything, otherwise the little amount of scar that's in there will tear apart, and then I'll have to put in pins and all that.
Wow.
God, man. I just have to be patient. And, get Catania to do everything for me, brush my fucking teeth. And you see, that's who we really are. We're actually helpless. If you're healthy in a way right now, you aren't, but you will be if you survive long enough. And you once were, and someone had to take care of you. And those are the people that complicated your psyche and made you be annoyed and everything, all the shit you were brought up with. So all that has to be loved. It's the only way I know. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not like you just, I love everybody and everything. It's not like that. Not for me, anyway. I had a hard. That's what I'm saying. I'd be in the checkout line, fucking fuming inwardly. That's a sick mind. It's not okay. Somehow I was able to love that, but seeing it was nasty. Having to see that it wasn't the cash register girl who was at fault, who was just learning her job and what did I get in this line? I
imagine you are in that line and you got wet socks because you came. Imagine you are queuing up and you are cold, you forgot your jacket, you came out of the car and your socks got wet, and you also have like a rotten flu. And, I'm just talking about that sort of thing that can go on for hours or days. And then it's like,
well, see, that's it right there. Let me stop you there, Paloma. That's the essence of it. You see, everything's always changing. I am not, when I say that awakened mind is speaking here, that's not some claim of perfection. I'm not saying that I might not be in a bad mood. I might be. That's not the point. It's the mood you're in is not the point. That's not really what's being discussed. We're all just human here. I could be in a foul mood. I could feel ill. Sometimes I've done a couple of these when I was sweating and really ill, almost shaking. Today I feel much better. So that's the way it goes. It's okay to be pissed off, but what I'm saying is ultimately we have to love all of that. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's easy, but there's no other approach that I can recommend. It's the only one I know. So, do you understand that? I think you really do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Simple.
Simple, hard to implement. Simple to say, hard to, no, because to implement it, you have to see your inner assholatry.
Thank you so much, Robert. Muchísimas gracias.
I really love you a lot because you bring honest questions and express yourself with humility and grace. Thank you.
Gracias.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you doing? Thank you for holding the space.
It's a pleasure.
I've kind of run out of a bit of steam. I'm just wondering how you're doing. But I wanted to ask, I think you're speaking to Jorge about that you just got to trust yourself, be a light unto oneself. And what I wanted to ask was how do you know, I guess, when you're deceiving yourself? You mentioned how you had repeatedly returned to Walter Chappell and he would tell you, no, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. And, without a teacher or someone, that can honestly put that kind of feedback, what can you do?
Is that the question?
I think so. I mean, I'm kind of playing with it. For example, I realize that, there's this talk about radical self-acceptance, that's pretty much all you can do. But for me, it seems that it's a guise for myself as, the actual motivation is actually self-improvement. I want to improve my life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Anastasios, right?
Yes, that's right.
Well, welcome, and it's a very good question.
Thank you.
If you need a certain kind of figure to hold your light for you for a period of time, I don't see anything wrong with that. That's like taking medicine. Just don't become addicted to it.
Done that.
Well, that's, see, I said before I was a collie and a destroyer.
Yeah.
There's more to it than that. I'm actually all three of those figures. That's what makes this flowering event so interesting to me, and I guess to other people at the moment. I happen to now have some of the light. That will soon pass, as John was saying. So the idea is to make best use. So if you have to project that part of yourself outwardly, that's okay. But understand, try to do it with some consciousness. You say to yourself, you know, Krishnamurti's really speaking some sense here. I'm going to try that on. So I'm going to try that version on and see what that does. That can be okay. So I'm not trying to erase spiritual teaching. I'm trying to erase the spiritual teaching that has the wrong motive so that the students who are attracted end up deceived. That's all. I just want to do away with that. And if you call what I'm doing or what some other person is doing spiritual teaching, fine by me. If we can throw some salt on that space and clean it up, get John to send in a few of the Wiccans and everything, burn something in there or something, clean it, purify the space, then I'll be a spiritual teacher. But until then, I don't want to go near that. So the best thing for you, I think, is to find a friend, a spiritual friend, who doesn't have to be in the role of teaching.
Sure.
Someone you can see like as yourself, like two people who are mulling over these ideas might be a good move. I think I'm trying to move us out of this teacher-student model into more of a fellowship model that John was talking about. Because honestly, I feel that way when I'm here. I'm glib and I have thought about these matters a lot. But there's other people here who know a lot. So I don't think I'm in some superior position. I really don't. And that's what I'm trying to get across, Anastasius. If you need a spiritual teacher, great. That's not the difficulty. The difficulty is making gods out of these people. Just human.
Well, yeah, I guess, I don't know if it was a need. I was just, I guess, appreciating. It seemed like Walter Chappell for you was quite instrumental in getting you to a point. I don't know if it was a friendship or a teacher relationship, teacher-student relationship. I mean, maybe you could speak to that. But he has mentioned, and you do speak about him with some respect, and it's mentioned in the book as well.
Yeah. Well, okay. So my relationship with Walter was a beautiful thing, and it had a lot of that teacher-student energy in it. But the difference is that Walter was not teaching me some dogma. He had no dogma of any kind. His influence on me was to get beyond dogma, which I already was there, except we're frightened to be without dogma and without anything that we can cling to. That's my message now. But that's what Walter was showing me, that I wasn't even, the boat was still tied to the fucking dock. I wasn't going to sail anywhere. And you have to untie that.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying now. Not that don't listen to the Buddha or Ramana Maharshi. They're both good to listen to, in my view. Very good. It's just don't make gods out of them.
No, I get that. Thank you.
And see, I'm not speaking. I consider that what is speaking here is awakened mind. I think some people will dispute that, and that they have every right. but to me it feels that way. So I just assume that these other people whose baggage I'm now carrying because they're 6 feet under and shit, were very much like this. If I'm wrong, okay, I guess I'm going to hell. So that's how I feel about it, Anastasia. Whatever floats your boat, man, go get it.
Cool. Thank you.
Is that it? Is that enough?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's. I had this question for quite a long time, and it, as you spoke to various people, parts of it would get answered, and it kind of diffused. But I thought I'd just break the ice anyway. So.
Well, it's such a good question you asked, and that's why I'm still wanting to check in. Is there something I've just said now that really brings some clarity to it? I'd like to.
Oh, I think for me, I guess if I'm honest, there's a need or a want for someone, I guess you can say, to do the work for me, or for someone to say no, that's not it, or that's not it, or just for an honest kind of unmanipulative check-in, if that makes sense. Because I mean, I've spoken to life coaches, I've been on the ayahuasca trip, blah, blah, blah. And there just seems to be like so much self-centered motivation in my experience.
Oh, thank you. See that now there is an observation worth remembering.
Yeah.
This entire structure is driven by vanity, man, in my humble opinion. I'm not, it's my humble opinion. Fuck that. In my opinion, this is driven by vanity. And if someone like Robert gets past vanity even 5%, I'm going to come off looking like a brilliant gem compared to this swamp of hedonism, using one another for cheap thrills and everything that people call it. You know. Yes. So, I was taken to task before for my cynicism, whatever Tom thought it was. That's because we're human animals. So if there's going to be an enlightenment of some kind or an awakening, it's not by erasing that. You can't erase it. You can't erase it. It has to. But you just forgive me. Let me finish. If you're going to have a theory about something or metaphysics, it has to account for everything. Otherwise, it's useless. And that's when I criticize spiritual teaching, I'm talking about the kind that's about purification and cleaning everything up, so that now we have the sacred space, and in here we can have magical thinking and everything, and keep the brigands out. See, that's not non-duality, even though you call it that.
Well, I guess that's what is so appealing for me about Gurdjieff and loving your beast. And some of the Zen.
So you're that type. And I got that.
Well, I mean, I've stumbled upon it actually post reading your book, which ended a lot of seeking in terms of Kundalini yoga, a whole bunch of shit really. And then I got into that, and I discovered a book by a man called Red Hawk. I think it's called Self-Observation, a User's Manual, and it's just it posits. Whenever we have a reaction and the emotional intellectual complex comes in, is just to sit and observe it. That is all you can do. There's no changing. And I think Krishnamurti would also say an effort to change oneself is an act of violence towards oneself. So I don't know, all these things kind of, after reading your book, came into my so-called field, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I got that. Oh, thank you for saying that. A lot of people have said that about the book, that after reading the 10,000 Things through a couple of times, usually they said two or three times, they were able to understand this other literature that they had read before.
Yeah, it's true.
They didn't understand the meaning of it, but when they somehow reading the 10,000 Things opened that space for understanding what these people from the past were saying. See, that's how people, because I refuse to bow to anyone, people might think that I'm tearing a new asshole for these Nisargadatta or whatever, but I'm not. I think these guys were great. I really dig them. It's just that we can't worship at a dead letter. We have to move on.
Yeah.
We have to have our swings with the axe. Otherwise, what's the point? So I'm just having my, this is so short. See, the mood here of impermanence is excellent because, I'm suffering from incurable illness actually, and this thing is short. And so the point here is to participate. That's where the joy is. And that's where the joy is at your age when you're not ill. It's only through participation. See? So all I'm saying to you, Anastasios, whatever you do, it's fine, spiritual teaching, no spiritual teaching, it's all fine. It just really be there for it. This is it. I mean, this is you. This is your shot, baby. That's the idea, see? And that's very important. Somehow the spirituality people are trying to erase all that shit because it's messy. There's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to just, this is it. This is me. Take it or leave it. It's been a wonderful revelation since reading your book, and
well,
so thank you for that.
Your approach here is so perfect, and you were really humble about it too, because I had to urge you to keep speaking. But once you did, what you said is so meaningful.
Thank you. I'm very aware of a very active narcissist in me, so I just watch it.
Yeah, we all have our shit. We all have our cross to bear. That's my God. Okay.
Thank you very much.
I'm getting silly. Who wants to be the next one to play with the crazy? This is so beautiful, man. Let me tell you, this is la-di-da. Okay, who wants to continue? Wow, we've come to the end, apparently. We've been at it a long time.
Okay. I read the book today to the end. I enjoyed it very much. But in chapter 7, you talked about that there is the thinker is in no way separate from the thought, and the feeler not from the feeling. So there is no split there. And then later on, I read something that seems to say something different. When you talk about the details of myself, like your skin, nationality, etc., that those details are only myself insofar I think they are and act like it. If you say that, and you say also that there's no separation between the thinker and myself, or the thought and myself, here I get the feeling that you, outside the box, it's like an permanent state that you address to, but there's, in the rest of the book you deny that, but here it seems a little bit like that. Do I misread this?
Thank you for the question. It's a very acute reading of the book. I appreciate that, Hughes. Thank you.
Okay.
I could use the Walt Whitman defense here. My house has many mansions. Don't hold me to any one view. I'm all and everything and all that. I could say that. But it's not that.
Mm-hmm.
It's that the actual experience is very hard to put into words. And so I may have gone at it from different angles. So as maybe one way would be understood by you and maybe the other way wouldn't, but someone else would understand that one and wouldn't have grasped the one that you were saying. So if I say it's all me, all my thoughts are me. I am my thoughts, feelings, perceptions, and all that, which I often said.
Yeah.
And that is constantly changing. It's a flow. If I say that, that's true on a certain level, but it's also, see, it's not an either or, it's more like a both and, because this is seamless, as John likes to call it. There's not a me separate from it. And now I've lost the thread there.
Well, the moment you talk about outside the box, that you don't need to identify with.
I'm back on it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So at the same time, and see, this is what's hard to convey in words. At the same time that one understands impermanence and feels this flow, at the same time, really hesitate to try to voice this. It's just hard, but there's a feeling that something persists. Maybe not endlessly. It's not like the thing that persists, I'm not saying persists forever or is deathless. I'm not talking about that. But there's some center of gravity that I bring to these meetings that I think is undeniable, for example. And
exactly.
When I sit here at the computer, I find myself falling into a certain frame of mind. Because I realize that very few people here know me personally, and most never will. And so all they really know of me is my words on paper, my picture on a screen, and words. And so this is like stand-up comedy or something in a sense. But I'm doing it from a very honest place. But we're not just momentary, even though I kept saying that in the book. Yes, we are, but we're not only momentary. There's some aroma here that seems to endure.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's entirely mysterious to me. Don't ask me to.
No. Yeah. No, but it's because you say that the impermanence, you mentioned that a lot of times. And here I felt this aroma that you say now, which endures. It's more a poetic way to put it. I understand that you cannot grasp it with words, but it's a satisfying reaction. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, it was important to the other theme, that I am my thoughts, my feelings. See, that was urgent in that book. That's something that needed to be cleared away. Jiddu Krishnamurti really did that very well in his work. I was influenced by it. And as I say, I'm just a link in a chain, and I think it was time for the link to bear that weight, write that down in a book that will be read nowadays in present speak. And the ideas are old. So it's not that everything I wrote has to make sense or compute, it's a confession.
Well, I can say that the whole book did make sense. I've read every sentence till I got it, and I had to laugh a lot also. It was beautiful to read it.
Wow, what a great review. Put that one on the Amazon page.
Yeah.
That's a lovely thing to say. And thank you so much, Hughes. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Anything more? You have anything to add?
No, it was this point only, but you cleared it up perfectly. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Anyone? Yeah, I see. Oh, Natalie, you have your hand up? Turn on your mic and speak, please. I'm sorry, I didn't notice the hand up thing. Turn on your microphone.
I'm here. I'm here.
We see you. I see you.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I really, that felt really important, that piece that just came in. I almost want to hear that again, what you just said about this aroma that's always here in the midst of, you know, and I don't know, there's something about hearing that again. It somehow, because of all the teachings, you know, of pure awareness, and it's just a different way of putting it that feels just more real. And I think the other thing that I just wanted to include, I just really wanted to include myself, and just I think the thing that I've been sitting with as we've travelled tonight is this, which all really comes, you know, really comes over when you speak, Robert, of this place in you that is so committed to honesty, self-honesty, and how vulnerable that is, and how exposing that is, and how much, as I can only speak for myself, but as myself as, you know, the ways I will defend against shame, for instance. And I was reminded of what first took me into my own therapy. I went into bioenergetics group therapy many years ago, and I went because I have, and it's really strong tonight, I have really sweaty hands and they drip sometimes, and I've had so much shame over that. And that place that wants to, you know, I just think about this whole spiritual journey and of wanting to avoid that level of exposure to that level of vulnerability, and so, you know, often when I've listened to the talks, there's a sort of relaxation that happens of just being human, and also this isness that's always here, that's reassuring, whatever that actually means, I don't know, but it's reassuring, it's got a reassuring quality. And then there's this you know, the impermanence and the, you know, facing over and over again the impermanence and the dying, and somehow that makes it easier to bear all this vulnerability that's here. I don't understand why, but it seems to, when I really face my mortality over and over again, somehow it makes it more bearable to expose myself. I think that's all I can think of saying right now.
The vulnerability is what's being defended against. Okay, I hope you're all hearing this. I just got an indication that my internet connection was shaky, but it looks okay at the moment. The vulnerability is what's being defended against by these philosophies and theories about the greater self, the savior, the God in heaven, the satisfaction, the enlightenment, all of that. That's a bulwark against fears that all of this may not mean anything except that you were an animal, you were born, you have certain propensities, desires and fears. They're reenacted. Usually you reproduce, but not always. You die, and the same thing just continues the same way it would for the gorillas if they weren't all having their forests destroyed by us humans. But the same basic, if you've ever observed other primates, the ones that are close to humans, they act like us. I've watched them. Okay, you're still there.
Yeah,
So,
I'm here.
okay, so see the vulnerability, seeing one's human frailty, one's attachment to this flesh and blood, perishable occurrence called my body, but really called me eventually. The attachment to that is quite difficult to bear. And so people look for what John Troy calls an escape hatch. And the escape hatch might be, this is only the waiting room for heaven, or whatever it is. And what I'm saying is, my experience is not like that. So what I wrote was personal confession. It's not a how-to book, which some people have tried to take it as a how-to book, even though I kept saying there is no how-to. So that's unavoidable. And that's part of this thing I was talking about earlier, Natalie, where I said stuff would be projected onto me. It was, hard to deal with as a personal cost. To put myself in this position, so I'm entirely vulnerable because I'm not keeping anything in at this point. So everyone can see exactly, if a tear falls from my eye, you'll see it fall right on the screen here in living color. And that's, but I'm not saying you should be that way.
No, but I also I am naturally more that way. In that,
see, there's no fix for it. That's if you feel things intensely, you just do.
Exactly.
Some people do, some people don't. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
There's actually no way you can avoid being you. So.
And there's a resting in that. I feel resting in that.
Yeah,
relaxing or whatever.
Yes, you can just take a load off, see, because you're not making any of this. Here we are. This is what's occurring now. And you don't have to deal with all of it, just moment by moment. And bring yourself into the calmness is here. It's not like you have to create it. You just have to see that it's here, regardless of what thoughts may arise. There is a calm center.
I was just thinking about when I broke, because I also, as I mentioned last time, I broke my wrist recently, and it was a really bad break, and it was, like my hand had to be kind of put back together. And in that, I was in a lot of pain. I haven't had probably any painkillers, but there was this huge amount of pain. But there was also calmness here, calmness in it. Or there was an experience in that where there was this extreme pain, and then there was also a calmness or a peace, or stillness. There was no story because it was so much pain, you know.
I do know. I do.
And I've experienced that also when I've had extreme experiences of grief. You know, the grief just, you know, almost feels unbearable.
You just feel like the wind is blowing right through you.
Yeah, and yet there's something there that's can't describe. Yeah, something there that's undescribable.
Okay, so that thing that you just said, there's something there, that, and you couldn't say anything more?
No, yeah, it's undescribable.
Because that is nameless, that is indescribable. Yeah. It does not have a name, and it cannot be explained or described.
Yeah, and that's the same with that when I was in that pain with my wrist. Exactly the same thing. I was in extreme pain, and yet there was this experience that had a different quality to it. It was when I was in the grief, or when I've had grief that's been so unbearable, or even fear. I don't know, maybe it is the same, I don't know, but anyway, it's undescribable. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So since it is a mystery that can't really be explained, it can be called a name, so you can hang a name on that, but hanging a name on something that is nameless, unnameable, doesn't explain anything. It just puts a name on something. It's really important to understand this. That thing that made you stop speaking, because
you could call it stillness, or you could call it silence, or you could call it emptiness, but actually they're just names, aren't they?
Oh, that's the idea. Now you've got it. See, don't try to work with this. You're there. When you have to stop speaking, that's the intelligence in you. See, there's a point at which words just don't cut it.
And I think now speaking, because you know that interaction that you had with Tom, was it? I can't remember his name. Thomas. The sort of fiery interaction you had earlier, where he was speaking about his experience, but because there was also a part of me, when I was listening to him, there was a part of me that was sort of going, well, I sort of get where you're coming from, you know, but from the position of trying to explain this place that we're talking about now. Yeah.
Well, so let's leave it at that, because actually I'm getting pretty tired. I've been at this for hours. I don't even know.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's really helped me.
Well, it's a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for being here. So John Troy, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I just want to say this has been truly beautiful. You're truly beautiful. This fellowship is very touching, and much respect for everyone. Much respect for you, Robert. I really love you. I really do. You're a beautiful human being.
Oh, John, thank you so much for being here. You just bring so much to all this, really. The idea of fellowship is such a beautiful idea. It really is.
Just a good old-fashioned folk fellowship.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, I'm going to say goodbye to you, John, because there's a couple of people waiting and I'm getting tired. So I'd like to finish it up. So thanks again, John. Okay, Jorge.
Yeah, really, that really brings it home to me, I guess, because reading in the book about your interview with the neuroscientist Rodolfo Linus about the sensation of free will, and that's kind of like that's a neuroscientist, and science we know is based on evidence. Therefore, you know, that's something that really has a lot of credibility there. So it's more easy to get rid of that sense of I, that sense of doership, that sense of responsibility over our actions when I remind myself of this, that relax, no one or nothing is in control really, you know, because it's yeah, I think Juice wanted to say something.
Right, Jorge. But so, and a point that I made in the 10,000 Things book that goes along with that is, yes, nobody's actually doing these things, and yet on the other hand, we should do the best we can. And I know that sounds paradoxical, but only because it's being seen from a certain perspective. From my perspective, there's no paradox in it. For me, doing the best I can is part of this entire happening. It's not separate from it, and it's not in control, but it's still there, and it still has to be honored. If you understand,
right?
Yeah,
yeah.
It's a subtle point, because you see, otherwise, someone might think that I'm just talking about passivity, and you might
exactly
might as well just give up because you can't do anything. But that's not what I'm saying. See, I'm not saying you're not the doer, so you can't do anything. What I'm saying is any doing that you do is in a confined space, like it's your play area, let's call it. It's your mind space. But in the vastness of the universe, you're not doing anything. I mean, this happening is incalculably huge and complex. We don't know anything much about it, really.
Exactly. And exactly my thoughts, because that's really something that is good to have in mind, that you're not really in control of anything. But then again, that leads also it's also to have in conjunction with that thought, the idea that, you know, be a light unto yourself, be true to yourself, trust in yourself only, you know, and just combine those thoughts.
That's the idea. You got the idea. That's what's expressed in the 10,000 Things from many different directions. The two things that are expressed are, we don't know who and what we are. That's being manifest beyond our understanding. This is all just arising in a way that we don't understand. And at the same time, there's a way of participating in this. And I hope, I know that's gotten through to a lot of people. And it makes me really happy to understand that people are getting it. So you can see the inevitability of being oneself, because you're only human and there's no transcendence of that. And at the same time, you can participate joyfully in this state of being at all. It's not one way or the other. It's okay to, you see, otherwise if you fall into despair, there's no reason to even be talking this way. It's not worth it. If talking this way ends up in despair or in a negativity toward life, that would be missing the point. You see,
pessimism, kind of, yeah.
Yes, this is not my outlook's not pessimistic. It's totally drastic. It's worse than pessimism.